some questions that you like to ask the candidates, some general questions. I am going to be the moderator tonight, so if I don't like your question, I'll just say, no, that ain't it. So you want to know like what their favorite cartoon character is, we'll allow that, but some of the other ones we'll decide. So make sure your questions stay in the realm of sanity, please, okay? And if you're unsure, just ask someone in the back if they think that's a good question. How's that? But we'll try to make some room for you guys. You know, all jokes aside, we'll try to make some room for you guys so that the candidates can answer your questions. I'm excited to have them here. So as we get kicked off tonight, so everyone, it looks like everyone's got their seats. So I don't know if we started the live yet, but are we there yet, Chris? No? Have we started the live yet? All right. Well, welcome everyone that's in the room and welcome everyone on our Facebook page. If you're watching on any of our social media pages and you have the Zoom link, you can jump on our Zoom and you can actually participate in this. So if you have any questions on the Zoom, we'll actually allow you to do that. We see you in the room as part of our congregation, our gathering tonight. So if you have the Zoom link, if you're on social media and you don't have the Zoom link, you won't be invited in. We want to make sure that we keep it to those that we know tonight on the Zoom. But if you're on one of our social media channels and you want to ask a question, just ask a question in the comments, and our tech team will actually take those questions. If they're good questions or questions we haven't asked yet, we'll throw them up on the back screen for us so that I can see those questions and we can lean into that. I could use a little help making sure that we cover topics tonight. All right? And so I'm very excited about that. Before we kick it off, this is a church. It's not a political forum or a governmental building. So I'm going to open in prayer. Amen? So, Father, I thank you tonight, Lord, for the opportunity to come and be involved in the governmental mountain, in the places of government, Lord, and to have conversations between the church and the government, Father. Not a controlling spirit, but a conversation so that we as believers can be involved in our representation that is representing us, not just as citizens, but as Christians with our values. And so, Father, we thank you that tonight, Lord, that you would let this broadcast go out further, let this forum go out further, Father. Would you direct, guide, and lead, not just myself, not just the people here, but the candidates, Lord, and would your hand be upon them, Father. Lord, above all else, we are sons and daughters of the Most High God. Lord, whether we hold titles or position, we all have to stand before you as nothing more than a son or a daughter. And our titles in this world will mean very little. So, Father, I pray over those tonight as they come that their words are vetted by you, Father, that your hand is upon them, Lord, and that you give them strategies, Lord, to lead well. Lord, that your will be done in this service and in their service to you, Father. I pray in the name of Jesus. Amen. Amen. So come on, you can clap for that. That's okay. Amen. Claps or amens. So I want to invite our candidates up tonight that are going to be joining us to talk to you guys tonight and answer some great questions. And so he's already coming. Would you welcome J.J. Humphrey to the platform? We have Heather Boss coming and Jake Merrick coming. So glad to have you. Take a seat wherever you like. You can sit right here if you want. J.J., great to have you.
I'll sit by him.
Yeah, you can sit back. Keep him in line. I'm going to give you guys a couple of mics here, and you can we have two. First, before I get into any questions or anything, I just want you to state your name. Can we turn one of the? Yeah, we'll fix it. We'll fix it. Sometimes when we turn them all on at the same time, they get a little feedback. But just state your name, what office you're running for, anything about you. You just give us a little opener.
Okay. Yeah, test. Jake Merrick, running for governor, and my beautiful wife, Nicole, here on the front row. Our background is mainly ministry, so this is our comfort zone in churches. This is where we love to be, is in the house of God. And through this journey of pursuing the call, God led us into the world of politics and served in the state senate for a time. and then hosted the Jake Merrick Show, where I talked about politics and what was happening in the state, and that just escalated to a burden to run for this seat. And I think it is a unique time in our nation and our state. So it's an honor to run for this office, and honestly, it's an honor to sit next to these two great individuals who have the same heart and conviction for the most part, I believe, and want to see transformation in Oklahoma as well. So God is doing some good things.
Amen. All right, excellent.
Hey, J.J. Humphrey. I have 20 years in law enforcement, opened my own business that was a drug court and private probation. Got mad at the DAs. I'm still mad at the DAs, but they're madder at me than I am at them, so I think I'm winning. Because of being mad at them, I actually closed my business, ran for state representative 10 years ago. I have been stirring up the state of Oklahoma in the House of Representatives for the last 10 years, and so I'm ready to leave the House alone a little bit, slide over to the Senate, and really stir them up way more, because they need some stirring up. Can I get a witness? And so I'm running for the light governor, not for the big governor. My arms don't reach that
Light
high.
governor.
But I'm running for light governor, J.J. Humphrey, lieutenant governor.
Right. Awesome. I'm Heather Boss, and I'm running for Senate District 24. I have been in ministry pretty much my whole life, and a few years ago, I was asked to start worship services at the Capitol, and so we did. We've been doing prayer quarterly at the Capitol, and during that time, I actually met JJ. He would come to the services, and he's the reason that I got into this whole mess to begin with. So him and a couple other legislators said, hey, you should run for the House of Representatives, and I'm pretty sure I called you all crazy right there in that office. If not, I was at least thinking it. I went home and spoke with my husband, and he said, well, if not you, then who? Who's going to do this? This is what we've been praying about every week, that people need to step up and step in. And so I ran for House 2 years ago. Lost that race pretty big, but hey, I didn't give up. God had a bigger plan. I stayed involved in politics, and here I am, running for Senate.
Fantastic. Very quickly, Kevin, can you come up here? Kevin, has come to our church for a long time. He came to our church on Sunday nights, even though he's a part of another church. But he is running for office, and I wanted to give him just a second. Just take a couple of minutes, introduce yourself, and tell him about your platform real quick. I know you weren't on the panel, but I want to give you a shout out.
Well, I'm honored. This is completely unexpected, and I thank you. Yes, I came here to this church. We were here Sunday nights for about 4 years. I got to help baptize my daughter here on one of those nights, and in fact, that night I went in the water myself. And when I came up, and I did it a year later too, but I think it was Pastor, it might have been Crystal. One of them on both occasions said, "I see a crown over your head, and that usually has something to do with civil government." And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm teaching Constitution classes. That's probably confirmation of that. That's great. Yeah, when somebody asked me to run for office back in June at an OK2A meeting, my first response was no, and then I had to repent of a lot of cowardice. And the next day I was asked by another friend at our home church to run for office, and I said, okay, I'll pray about it. And that's one of those things that afternoon when I was praying about it, that's one of the things that God brought back to my mind. He said, I commissioned you. I went, oh, now I get it. And now I get those Constitution classes too. Not that I'm going to stop them, but this was God's preparation. And man, we have so much work to do in this state. It bothers me that we're the reddest state in the union, but we have such blue things coming out of our state government. And my deepest respect to J.J. Humphreys for all the work that he's been doing, stirring up the pot. And now I want to go back. I want to get up in there and start fixing it, getting it back in line with principle. That's why I'm running.
Come on. Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it. So Kevin's running for House District 47.
Yes.
So let me kick it off with that because of Kevin. Kevin is running for House District 47. I'm just going to put it as plain as possible. He's not going to be able to do anything. He's not going to be able to get anything done as a representative of the people. There's going to be people that elect him, and he is going to have his hands tied the whole time. Let me say what the reason why I'm here, and then I'm going to jump into that. So let me come full circle back into that. But the reason why I decided to do this, if you would have asked me 2 years ago to do a political forum of any kind, I would have said absolutely not. This is a pulpit, not politics. And I would have said the kingdom of God has nothing to do with the kingdom of man. And I have to repent for that, and I repented for that, that I did not fully understand how much the church needs to be involved in the governmental mountains. I was with Lorenzo Swell. And Lorenzo, if you guys don't know who he is, Pastor Lorenzo, he's the one that did Trump's inaugural prayer. And he is very big in Washington. And I spent a handful of days with him just recently as one of the pastoral delegates, about 200 of us that spent some time in Washington, D.C., that were honored for the rededication of America back to God. So I was a part of a very small delegation of pastors that got to represent that. Understand, I'm the pastor who said no to politics. And God now has me in that place. God will raise people up that don't desire positions because they won't use those positions to be corrupted, right? Any man that says, I desire a place of power, don't vote for him, okay? Look for the ones that had to be talked into it. And so I know some of these men's hearts, and I know they had to be talked into it. But this is something that Lorenzo said to me that struck me to the core and made me realize that the church has to wake up and do a better job. He said this. We were like, we should pray. He goes, that's great. Let's pray. He goes, but I'm tired of all that prayer and all-night prayer services. And we kind of looked a little shocked at him. And he says, I've done it. I mean, do it by all means. Of course, prayer works. He goes, but here's the problem in the church. He goes, we pray well. He goes, we preach well. We prophesy well. We don't policy well. And the people with wicked agendas are the ones standing in front of the politicians while the church never gets in their face. And we think that those political figures just suddenly know the issues we deal with. They suddenly know what we want, what we expect out of our representative. If the only one willing to talk to the politician are the lobbyists and the people with wicked agendas, no wonder why the church is losing a foothold. He says, we need to let them know what the church expects out of a moral government, that we're going to hold them accountable to the morality, that they represent the constituents of all the nation, including the church. And that shifted my mindset coming home from Washington, D.C., that we need to do a better job at it. And so even with the podcast that we did, most of the time we talked about faith. I didn't talk policy because it was about faith. I've shifted. And so let's start with that. Kevin's going to run for House District 47. By the grace of God, he's going to win it. And he's going to go represent the people. Here's the problem. The people on this stage, you know, you've been in this position. He's not actually going to be able to represent very well. Now, I'm not saying he's not going to be able to do anything, but I don't know if you know this, but Jake and I have discussed this. The idea that your representatives cannot bring a bill to the floor. They cannot push a vote to the floor. If there are bills that represent the constituents they represent, they can't get them to the floor because there are two people who control those votes, one in the House and one in the Senate, that if they don't want that vote brought up, that vote doesn't get brought up. And JJ, I'm going to ask you a slightly different question on that because we had a conversation that's different. But what, as governor, can you do to make sure that we actually have a democracy again? This is an indictment that our representatives can't represent unless, if that leader is corrupt, then that means that every representative in the House and the Senate has to play in a corrupt system in order to get anything done for their constituents.
Yeah, you said it, representative. And we have a representative republic that's grounded in a constitution. And so our system is undermined when those representatives cannot represent. And there are efforts underway right now to push for a 3-bill minimum that would require the House to hear 3 bills from every House member and the Senate to hear 3 bills from every senator. And that's a good start, but it doesn't fix the problem. And I was told when I was running for my first Senate seat, we love you, we need good men like you that are moved by principle, not politics, but if you get elected, you won't be able to do much. And so I was like, well, we'll see about that. well, I got in and I found it to be true. And it was because the system was working against me that you're told from the outset, just don't vote against any leadership bills. If a leader is carrying it, especially the pro tem, don't vote against it. And then I found out why. Because if you vote against, if you dare to challenge leadership, then you can be blacklisted. And anything with your name on it cannot advance. And so I found that to be true, that the man at the top, like you said, in the Senate is the pro tem of the Senate. He can instruct the gatekeepers, the chairman of the committees, not to hear a bill from any author. And so I was shut out. I know JJ's experienced same or similar things. And it's one of the reasons I'm running for this office, because I know that the structure of the Senate is dysfunctional. And until it's corrected, me, a principled man going in there, would not be able to do much. I could add one more to the number, and we need more numbers of conservatives in there. But I'm interested in reform today. I'm interested in reform this year, and it needs to happen. And so I'm running for this seat because I want to move things along quicker. So I could not directly influence the structure of the Senate and the House, except through the bully pulpit and bringing attention to it, which I'm eager to do. I'm eager in the State of the State address, when I have the Senate and the House in the same chamber, the pro tem and the Speaker of the House behind me, to be able to say, will you, gentlemen, return the power back to the people? Will you bring forth a rule change to restructure the power structure of these chambers and return it back to the people? Because I would like to see the Senate body elect the chairman of the committees. So those chairmen are accountable to the body, not one man at the top. So, if they choose not to hear a bill, they'll have to explain it to the body. And they'll be accountable to the body for not allowing legislation to go through. So I believe that's the true fix of that. And I'm eager to hear, JJ speak to this as well, because this is the, in my opinion, the factor to consider in the lieutenant governor's race. Because the lieutenant governor is also the president of the Senate and could be very influential in this rule change that we need. So, and it's going to take a unique individual, I will say, that's going to take the gavel and exercise his authority as president of the Senate. So we need a unique individual. I just hope that we have a unique individual running.
I think we have a unique individual. So how? Let me ask this question very quick before we move on. How many in here know what the lieutenant, besides what he just said that moment, how many of you here know what the lieutenant governor is actually supposed to do? There's like the ones that are running, the ones that are spouses of running. Right, almost nobody knows that position. And so this what Jake just said, that the lieutenant governor has the power to undo this. How many of you are just finding out you don't have a representative government? You have two people that are controlling your representation, that you didn't vote for, that are not in your districts.
Well, I like to say that we do, as long as they allow us.
As long as they allow it.
Right.
But they have the power to not allow it. So we need to have change. I think we need to have change. I am voting for my district representative. I want their hands untied. So JJ, can you talk into that? And I know we talked a little bit more about all of the problem with how they shut out some of our representatives. So speak into that.
Shut out would be one thing, because they do shut us out. They do stop us. I've not been allowed to run a bill for 2 years. This year, you said a while ago that we have a red state and we're blue. I always say we have, a red state with blue regulations. And so we regulate everything. So this year, I could run as many repealers, and I studied repealers, and I played a joke on them to figure out how to learn about repealers. Learned about repealers. You have an unlimited amount of repealers, and so I filed 36 repealers, okay? I had a person call me, and he said, hey, I would like to run this bill for you. And I said, dude, they're going to eat you alive. And he said, no, I can run this. So this is chairman. I want to run your bill. I said, that's cool, but, you need to watch out for yourself and what you're doing. 2 days later, he calls me back, and he says, can I have some grace? And I said, did they eat you up that bad? And he said, oh, son, you ain't getting no bill. You ain't getting a bill run. I said, I tried to tell you that. And then that's what we're experiencing. Now, here's the deal. I have sued the Speaker of the House. I've sued the former Speaker of the House. I have put them all on a grand jury. I put the entire Supreme Court on a grand jury. Now, I understand why they're mad at me. But we got a guy named Jim Shaw that's probably one of the nicest people you ever met, runs great legislation. Guess what? They don't let him have anything. They set him up to fail, make him look bad. They do it intentionally. They do Molly Jenkins. They do Gabe Woolley. I could go down a list. Tom Gann is one of the smartest people you ever want to meet. I mean, just the nicest guy, very professional. Guess what? I'm naming you all the conservatives. If I went over to the Senate side, guess what? Same thing. So this group that tells you we are the conservatives, this group that's out there running right now as the conservative group, is the exact group, whether we're talking about the AG, whether we're talking about the former people who've been up there, they are the group that I'm talking about that has stopped all good legislation, that have went after. And when I say go after, my first year up there, there was 18 of us that they just got really mad. They named us the Patriot Group. We were stopping a lot of their legislation because they were just going crazy with taxing stuff. So we were stopping that. They ended up using dark money to take 14 of those people of the most conservative group that I've ever been around, my good friends, and they took them out. I'm sitting by a guy, if you want one of the best things, wondering why that I'm with him all the time and we agree on so much, they took him out. They used dark money to take him out because they could not control him. Anybody that they can't control. And guys, listen, the First Amendment, we all know the freedom of speech, the freedom of press. You know, we know all those. Freedom of religion, we're sitting in the house of the Lord, freedom of religion, all those good. We forget that we have the right to petition, the right to assemble, the right to associate, and the right to redress grievances, okay? Now, what that means is that we, the people, they've forgotten. They answer to us, not we answer to them. The grand jury petition is how we do that. I have filed one of those. They have filed a $50,000 sanction. Well, they filed 46, and I did a cartoon on them. So they amended it and made it 50. So I said, well, I'll call you 50 and do another cartoon. And that's where we get what the Humphrey is going on. So anyways, guys, they are filing in to kill the grand jury. The politicians and judges are saying, you cannot do this to us. You cannot do a grand jury. Guys, the First Amendment is the people's authority to do exactly that. It's the people's authority to hold the government accountable. So while I'm running for lieutenant governor, I want you to know that it's not going to be one guy governor. I think electing a great governor, electing senators, electing lieutenant governor is important. But I'm telling you, this race is about you. And this race is about we, the people. Who do you want? Who are you going to elect? And what are we going to do? And I just want to challenge you, no matter what the outcome of this election, it's time we, the people, take Oklahoma back.
I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Heather, but I'll ask a question that all of you can. If you want to add something, you can. But
Yeah, absolutely.
go ahead. Yeah.
The rules that Jake mentioned, those are set every 2 years, I believe, internally. And there is a golden rules package that has been presented and shot down. You can look that up online. I think it's just goldenrules.org or something like that. Written by Brady Butler, who's running for Senate, and Dusty Devers, who's running for re-election this year. And so they have written those as a way to be for the people instead of for the leadership constantly. And so those are things that need to change.
Yeah, excellent. So, okay, recently we just had a governor's debate, and you were snubbed from that debate. Now, if any of you have seen any of the press on that debate or any of the social media posts, you would think by the responses in the comment that Jake is in first place. In fact, I kind of think he probably is. He has more of a grassroots following than anybody, which is why we voted him here. So before anybody gets upset, thinking that the polling counts, if you were unaware that governor's poll, I might have my numbers slightly wrong, so don't make a Pastor Ren is a liar but I think it was like 457 people, somewhere in that area. I think it was 457, somewhere between 400 and 500 people were polled in Norman for that poll to decide who was going to be governor. I think the Democrat probably polled the best in Norman, right? So, yeah, that seems like that is not representation of our state. So here's the reality is that in our state, I know when I talk to people, they want their freedoms protected, they want their children educated at a high level, and they want the opportunity for good jobs. They want a good economy. Those are three things that people really care about. And so I know that Mazie came out of it. I won't disparage what he said, but as I understand it, several people were very upset about some of his comments about education. There was a comment to the degree of that he thought that a lot of our educators in Oklahoma were very left liberal leaning educators, and there was some statistics out about how most of our leaders in education are actually declared Republicans, right? And so I don't necessarily want to lean into the idea of blaming liberals for our education problem. What can we do as Republicans, as conservatives, however you classify, independents, or just a very conservative state, what can we do to improve our education? We know that other conservative states are now climbing, right? We're very much towards the bottom of education. We have other states climbing. What can we do? What will you guys do in office to address those concerns in your district, for the state, et cetera? Starting with you, Jake.
Sure, yeah. So the polling, I don't believe polls, and when you say that, you also have to include the polls that show you leading. And so I don't want to have too much despair over the ones that show me in the tail end of it, and then too much confidence from the ones that show me blowing them away. Because there are those out there as well. But the same is true of education as well. I don't really trust a lot of the polls concerning education. Every state does education a little bit different, and so you can't really compare apples to apples when you look at state to state.
So speaking about how some of these states have risen from dead last up to 16,
right,
Alabama and some of the other states.
The comparison is always Mississippi. They call it the Mississippi Miracle, and maybe they've improved, but it's interesting because there's a lot of people speaking out from Mississippi saying, dare I contest that, that they say that it actually has not improved to the degree that is usually publicized. So I'm not interested in comparing Oklahoma to any other state. I want to set the model. I want to set the precedent. And so we don't need to be all of a sudden up in arms that we dropped to 50th, because for a while we were ranked 48th. Are we now concerned because we fell to 50th from 48th? Why aren't we number one? That's the mentality we need to be thinking about. I'm not trying to reach 20th. I'm trying to lead the nation. And so let's rise to number one. What will that take? It's going to take a radically different model than what we currently have. And you're not going to get there by looking at other states and trying to do it the way they're doing it. We have to say, Oklahoma is brilliant. We have the talent, we have the skill, we have the anointing, dare I say anointing, to do things differently and lead the nation. So I think some massive restructuring is needed, like considering our superintendents. Could we move from over 500 superintendents to 77, one per county? A county model. There's other states that do that successfully. And actually, there's a group that I'm talking with that is a small group of professionals that have been meeting consistently for a few years now, studying Oklahoma education. Their conclusion is they would like to see a regional model for superintendents, even fewer than I'm suggesting. So
is that to save us money? Is that to make it more?
It's what I call administrative bloat. We have a massive amount of our funding going straight to the top to administration, while our teachers, the ones in the trenches, are struggling. That seems upside down. So what if we reduce the amount of money going to the top and direct that to the classroom? Immediate raise for the teachers. I've been saying that we need to hire high quality teachers. which we have, by the way, in the state. It's not that we have a teacher shortage. The good teachers are just refusing to go to the chaotic classrooms that we're offering them. Huh? Some of the good teachers, yes. So we want to get those good teachers in the classroom. We want to get them in there. So let's hire high-quality teachers, pay them great wages, and then here's the kicker, trust them to do their job. The thing that they're called and equipped to do, we need to let them do that. And we need to move away from standardized testing to local assessments. We need to stop teaching to the test and teaching kids. So let them assess. A teacher should be able to assess if a child can read, and then the teacher could decide if that child is ready to move on. Not some standardized test that is massively flawed. So these are some basic ideas that I think we could do to restructure the way we pay our teachers, the way we organize our classrooms, and the way we pour into our kids. So I've got more ideas, but I'll leave it there for now.
You know, what I find interesting, before you respond to that, what I find interesting is that, you know, I looked at a list some years ago, and I think on the top 10 billionaires, 8 out of the top 10 billionaires all went to Montessori schools. So they had a different model of education. If you don't know Montessori, they have a different model of education. They taught them how to learn, not memorizing facts and dates and that kind of thing. So I think that restructure really is what we need to look at. Is like, what's actually going to enable our kids to actually have a future, right?
Yeah. I'll just add 2 more points.
Sure.
The parents have to be prioritized. You know, so we have a massive problem in families. So families are breaking apart. We've got to prioritize the nuclear family. But parental authority must be protected. That's a God-given right that must be protected. And one of the ways we can do that is by moving the school board elections to November. Right now, they're tucked away into the spring, where we have low voter turnout, and it's hard to get good conservatives in there. So if you move it to November, where there's a greater voter turnout, it's more likely that you'll have school board members that will represent the people, represent the teachers. And I believe if we have good conservative school board members, they then can direct superintendents as to what will happen in the school, rather than allowing the superintendents to direct them, the elected officials, what should happen. And so that important point. The next one I want to say is bringing back those VOTech and career tech skills inside of high schools and junior highs, right? So a greater investment there. So when they graduate, it's not immediate college, not everybody. In fact, we're finding out more and more. I love Charlie Kirk's message about challenging this idea that everybody must go to college. But how about they graduate with real skills that could be put to work? And we could have that outside of high school. So I want that greater investment in the career tech and VOTech in our public schools.
That's good. JJ?
First thing on polling, we kind of left that talking about education. Go back to polling. My opponent has a poll out, or somebody made a poll. He's like 42, and I was 7, but they forgot to say that was taken at his family reunion, and I still got 7. Okay, I still got 7 at his family reunion. Just saying, okay. But anyways, back to the education issue. I just had to throw that in there. Back to the education issue.
You guys really want him elected, right? Because you want to hear from him on the news.
Hey,
C-SPAN would be so much better with JJ
Hey,
Humphrey.
listen, me and CNN, the Communist News Network, we get along, okay? So
the press conference is going to be so much.
I
I'm
like
voting
to
for you
turn
just
on the
because it's going to be so much better politically
I turn
watching
on the
you.
country when I get on there. I'm like,
Go ahead.
Well, let me see now. Here's the deal on education. There's 2 or 3 things we can do immediately to reverse a number, and like Jake was saying, a number of 48, 40, 50, la-di-da, okay? We want to be number 1. That's what you strive for, except for runoff. Number 2 is loser, okay? But I always got to add that. But here's the thing. We want to be number 1, but we got to look at all of these factors. We require everyone to take ACT. If we would stop that, guess what? Other states don't do that. That's one of the reasons that we are that low, is because nobody else requires every student to do that. Next, we're talking about consolidation.
So are you suggesting that the lowness is false because a lot of those other states aren't aren't testing their
Yeah.
low students.
Well, you got to have apples to apples. We got to, if we're going to score on everybody, we need to make sure we're all on the same level.
That's
And
it. That's very good.
Again, we're not, and so pretending that those testing are equal, they're not equal. And so the other thing is, we have 2 schools in this state that we know if we pulled off Tulsa, we drop to 25. If we add Oklahoma City, we drop to 15. Okay? We could be 15 by just taking 2 schools off of our list. Now, that's very, very important, because what have we done? We've known that for 4 years. What have we done to change that? If we know those 2 schools,
Which 2 schools are they?
that's Tulsa and Oklahoma City. And so
And-
that's
and
coming out of.
probably, let's check the salary of those superintendents.
Oh, absolutely. But here's the thing. This is where we may differ. I'm always on my own outside box, okay? But we could work because we're willing to listen and we're willing to go find facts, okay? And if the facts prove that that's what we need to do, then let's do it. That's what I want to do. But when I say those 2 schools, guess what they did? They consolidated. Your 2 worst schools in the state are states that consolidated. We should consider that when we're talking. We do have an upside down pyramid. We absolutely have an upside down pyramid, and that's in every state agency that we have. If you walk out the back of the building at the Capitol, this is where I would start. Go into that building, and it's like, what are y'all doing? I mean, what's your job? Liaison to the Oklahoma City jail or something. It's like, do we really need an education liaison to the jail? You know, you go to the next office, we're here to study well, I may not say. Sometimes I'm a little off color. The sex habits of the South American swamp rabbit's what I was going to say. But you know, do we really need anybody to do that as well? I mean, it's crazy when you go into these offices, what we have massive amounts of people over there doing. So one, we got to turn that upside down, right side up, because what happens when you have that, it's dysfunctional. You can't get information. So you got a reading specialist out there who I know because I'm married to her, and she does this, all these testing, and guess what? She has to turn it over state, but she can't do what she's supposed to till the state gets her the numbers back. She's sitting there waiting, and they're threatening her because she ain't done this yet. And she's like, hey, y'all ain't gave me the numbers yet. So again, that's the problem. It's dysfunctional. We've got them scoring everything in large numbers. Just craziness that we can fix it. It is upside down. So there's some things right there that we can do immediately that would take care of this. We sold a bunch of land. So we sold a bunch of land called the school land. Okay? When we sold that, there was $2.5 billion in that account. Now, we still own land and we still own minerals. So we got money coming into that pot of $2.5 billion. So it's growing. We also get the interest. You can't spend the trust, but guess what? You can spend the interest. Now, that makes roughly 400 million, 500 million, whatever it is right now. We could take some of that money. We can put it over here for 4 years. We take a 25%. We stick it over here for 3 or 4 years. Guess what? In 3 or 4 years, we can pay teachers great salaries, no new taxes, no new anything for what that money's intended. What are they doing? I turned them in because the investor was investing with his own club. Guess what? Hadn't heard nothing on that. You know what I'm saying? So we need to look at this money, what's being done with it. Is it being legal? Where's it being spent? Because this should be checked into big time, and we've asked to be checked into, and the AG ignored me. So here's the thing. We have the means to do money. We have too much in our state. I do want to leave you with this. The consolidation, I think, is an issue because when you get too big, we lose accountability. That's what's happened, so we got to be smart about this. I also want to tell you this. Come down to my area, guess what? we don't have a problem with schools. If I come up here, my kid probably would go to private school. So I want you to have the choice where your kid goes. But if you come down to my area, we more worried about our roads in our school, because we love our schools and we got great schools, because we still have discipline in our schools. We still have people, the community in our schools. And so that's what we've got to get back to, is the discipline, the community. But I want to leave you thinking about this just on consolidation. Okay? When you consolidate, go look anywhere I'm talking about. These principals take care, superintendents take care of their busing, they take care of their food, they take care of their maintenance. So guess what happens when you consolidate? You have to start a busing superintendent, and you have to start a whole division. You have to start a kitchen superintendent, you start a whole division. You have to start a maintenance supervision. I challenge you to go to any district that they consolidated. You're going to have, so you're getting rid of these superintendents, and you're making 3 more superintendents, and guarantee you're going to get less service out of those. So when you have a bus breakdown, you're if you have a school and that superintendent has only that bus going to get fixed. Maintenance, and that maintenance man has to see that teacher every day when their air conditioner's off. Guess what? That air conditioner is going to get fixed really quickly. So those are the things. I'm not saying we shouldn't look at it, but I'm saying there's more to the equation, and we have to be really smart when we look at it. So let's put all the factors in.
So we need to be careful about consolidation, make sure we're not just consolidating to consolidate. We need to wisely consolidate. One of the other things that might be helpful before you respond to that is just a meritocracy type system, right? Is making sure that that maybe what we do is, instead of paying these exorbitant fees or salaries for some of these administrative positions, is that we're making a meritocracy. So these Oklahoma City schools that are dragging us down, the country people are making more money than them because they're actually ranking higher and performing better. We need a meritocracy type system for our school system.
And we also got, so when I say not consolidate, I think we have to be smart enough. If you got a school over there with 30 kids in it, you know what I'm saying? By attrition, it usually happens, but we can do things to encourage. And that's what we've got to do. We've got to look at what's wise and then figure out a smart way to drive them. I'm smart enough when I build my fence to make cattle run towards that gate. That's what we got to do. We've got to build smart fencing to make these schools, make these communities. You want our money, this is what the outcomes. You're going to have to meet outcomes to receive money. And again, we have to look. There's no simple answer. I think we have to take it case-on-case basis, and I think we have to use wisdom and look at each situation. But we have to be able to have that full conversation without hating each other and throwing rocks at each other.
Yeah, that's great. So I'm going to have Heather answer it. For me, I'm not running, but I just call my friend Elon and just have him go through and like he did at Twitter, X, right? Just call him up, say, buddy, come on in, fix our education.
Well, that's what I've been telling people at the doors, and that's why first of all, I wouldn't, come too close. I've been knocking doors all day, and it was hot out. So I didn't have a chance to go home and freshen up for you here. So I'm in my door knocking outfit. But when I'm at the doors and I'm talking to folks, one of the things I do say is something similar. And I don't have Elon on my call list, but
I don't either. My middle name's Elon. That's as close as
there you go. Okay. Yeah. I do tell them, though, I think we need to do an audit. I know an audit was done at the Tulsa schools recently, and they found a lot of misspending and a lot of admin spending, and I think that is a big problem. And even in the district, I have heard from more public school teachers as I'm talking to them that they are concerned with the admin problem. They're concerned that every time they turn around, there's a new admin over something even just in their school. And so, we need to look at that and audit these and look at the admin from that aspect. And the other thing I want to say is that we're 50th in public education. And they're not including the homeschool testing. This doesn't include that. So we're
interesting.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah. So if you look at homeschool students and you look at when we dropped from 48th to 50th, was that during that time where we've seen a lot of people pull out of public school and go to homeschool?
A lot of people go to Epic, like there are programs, homeschoolers, and programs like Epic, which is kind of a pseudo homeschool, right? And so like an online school. And so we definitely have other options and so when we take these ranks, I mean, that's something to chew on for all of us, that when we look at these ranks, we just have these kind of, let me put it this way. Politicians think you're stupid. They think you're stupid that if they just throw out a soundbite like we're 50th with no qualifications. That's why it's so important to be involved in questions like this. I'm going to ask you a more specific one, but in forums like this, because here's the problem, guys. The church tunes out of this stuff. These people, if they win, you're sitting here with them. They're going to determine what your taxes are next year. When your house payment goes up, it's because of bills and legislation that went through because of these people sitting here. When your groceries go up, if you're in California right now and you're in Oklahoma, there are two different gasoline tax or bills that you're paying. We were just recently in California. Gas is $6 a gallon. It is the same gas here in Oklahoma. Most of the country's refineries are in Houston. Yet gas in Houston is more expensive there than it is here, and it has to be piped here or trucked here. Like that, there is a big difference. Why is ours cheaper? That has to do with the political system behind it. It has to do with the taxes on gas. You know, you pay taxes on gas, right? And so in California, the taxes on gas are out of control. So when the politicians raise the tax on gas, they blame a national government. They blame our president. Oh, look at the gas prices. And they're not honest when Oklahoma is half the cost. And so something is wrong. These people are deciding how much of your paycheck you keep and what you can do with your children, how they're educated. It is so crucial for the church to be involved in these conversations, especially in the Bible Belt, where we make up a huge percentage of the voting class. And so you're running in a district. You don't get to influence the national level. You don't get to influence the state level, perhaps in a small way, right, as part of the vote or congregation of votes. But what can you do like locally in even your district there to help maybe be an advocate for education for your district? Have you thought about that about how you can represent that? Are you doing anything? Are you talking to the teachers? Are you talking to a lot of that, even inside your own district, to help your district be an example to the state?
Yeah, absolutely. Like what I mentioned, you know, one of the teachers that I spoke with at the doors, he was at a junior high, and that was where I was hearing that there's more admin. So there are some teachers that I've been talking to as I've been going out and knocking and speaking with folks, and one of the things that I'm running on is that I'm going to be a voice for the people. And so when they're telling me these things, I want to be able to advocate for them. But like JJ mentioned earlier, when you go in and you are not a bought vote, when you aren't taking PAC money, lobbyist money, when you cannot be controlled and manipulated, you're going to be silenced unless we can bring some reform, like you were talking about earlier. But my goal is to go in and, yes, be the voice. So as people tell me what their concerns are, we can look at that and try to make those changes once I'm in there, yeah.
Yeah, as far as consolidation goes, I think, you know, just thinking out loud as we're talking about this, because I think it's good to have open dialogue. Sometimes you throw out a great idea and then you go, that's not a great idea. But, and I'm okay with that. And our politicians need to be okay with disagreeing and talking through that and saying, hey, let's sharpen each other and disagree here for a minute because we might come to a better solution. So as I'm listening to that, I'm thinking, how great would it be for our representatives of those districts to have a winner-take-all mentality of, hey, they're uncuffing me to be able to help my district in education, job creation, those different areas. And if I create a model where I'm improving the admin situation or improving the structure of my school district, that as you see that education in that district rise, that representative's making an impact, that the whole state can look at that district and say, okay, what are you doing to advocate, you know, releasing and giving our representatives more authority in their areas to actually influence change. So they might not be able to bring bills to the floor, but they can advocate for educational change in their districts. Like what would that look like if they could actually test out their theory before it becomes a bill. Like, hey, Heather has transformed the way the school system is working there. It's more efficient. She's been able to go in there and streamline things. Maybe not the power to hire, fire, that sort of thing, but something where she can get in there and actually affect change where everything doesn't have to be a state level. So thinking out loud, that's stuff that I think could be a positive impact.
So I'm going to talk to you about my district a little bit, but I'm going to go real quick on several things. So here's the deal. If you have a revenue stream, you cut the revenue stream, guess what? You either do away with services or you create a new revenue stream. Pretty simple. I mean, that's basic, okay? So where would we get a new revenue stream? So let me just talk about my district a little bit. We have gravel like you wouldn't believe. It's called aggregate. We have sand, okay? So sand that is some of the best sand in the United States to use to make chips with. So we have all this. Other counties have granite, all kinds of stuff, okay? But the gravel that we have in our district, guess what? It's going to Texas. So Texas is taking our resources. They're tearing up our roads to get them there. They're using our railway, and we're sending all this down to Texas, about 85% of it. And guess how much tax we're getting? Zero. Because when I run that bill, guess what? State chamber comes over. Now, if it's good for the speaker, we can get it out of the House. That's why I was able to get it out of the House 3 times, because he's got that area with sand. But then they just make a deal. This is how it works. They just go over to the Senate and say, well, it helps him get this out of here, but we'll kill it over there. And then they trade off because they'll need bills killed over there. So that's how the thing works. So we never get that bill passed. Now, I want y'all to think about that. I had on roads 10 cents per ton. We would have had massive roads all over our whole state paid for, guess what, by another state. 85% of it paid for another state. Are we not stupid for letting state chamber? Now, guess what? The timber company is big in our area. I know y'all don't have a whole lot of timber, but every county has stuff like this. We can study this stuff. I've studied it, and we can do this statewide. We have timber. We had a place called Warehouser. They had about 1.5 million acres. They sold it to outside companies, all Texas. We built roads all through that. If we would open those roads, we would have a great, great tourism attraction. Could bring money to our area, easy peasy, and we built them, so they should be ours. Okay, they turned around and gave them a wasteland tax. So when I'm sitting over here paying full price tax, these people who have commercial timber, who's leasing their land out, not paying tax on the lease to lease it for hunting for $5 an acre, are paying 38 cents an acre on tax, while they're leasing it for $5, growing, massive $1 million corporate money on the timber, tearing our roads up, getting it out, and guess what? We don't pay a tax on the board foot. So they're paying no tax. So all of our resources are going out. Guess what? That's 1.5 million acres. If we just got $1 tax on that, that's a lot of money, and that goes entirely to our schools. Our almost 80% of it goes to school. Water, we're not getting anything on water, okay? So again, if we just got a small percentage, so why are all these corporates not paying one dime tax? Because they have state chamber, they all have a PAC, that PAC pays in, they all have their corporations, and they have a PAC, and guess what? They buy off the entire legislator. That's how it works. So if you want to talk about local, if you want to talk about broadband that affects all of Oklahoma, affects my region really, because right there in rural, guess what? We dropped $1.3 billion into a very political board of a group of people who, guess what they do? They build broadband. We drop $1.3 billion into that political board. Guess who gets all the money? 61% goes to guess who? Them. Now, guys, I keep a filing cabinet called Sketchy Stuff back at my office. That's some sketchy stuff, okay? That's sketchy. That ain't no good, okay? You big red flag. Scooby-Doo would call that a clue, and Scooby-Doo would say rut-row, okay? Rut-row, Shaggy. So, guys, there is so much as a state. It's called waste, fraud, abuse. We talked about it just a second ago. And again, when you were talking about y'all's size administration up here, guess what? When I say we got to think about consolidation, I'm open. That's where I would say, okay, now we need to look at that. Up there at that Capitol, we need to look at it. So I don't want to come across that I'm not for consolidation. I'm for using wisdom and going in there and doing an assessment of every situation and making it right. And I'm for mastering skills. We have started testing, and we have computer systems now that, you know what, I'm not the greatest in math. I'm okay. I can add a little bit, okay? And they don't think I can read. I can't read, okay? So here's the deal. But I'm really good in history. So if we had a computer system that would help me in math or school, you know what I'm saying? I may need to tutor in math, but I may need to go to college level in history. And why are we holding kids back? So again, we need to be able to identify them and let them excel in areas like what you were talking about, technology a while ago. You know, I mean, I got one kid, he loves to build stuff. He's a what do you call that, salutatorian? Yeah. He's second in his high school. He was second in his high school, scores great, college stuff. He likes to carpenter. That's what he likes to do. Guess what? Makes really good money. And he quit that to go to join the 82nd Airborne. They just recruited him for the Rangers, so.
I was also salutatorian, and then I went to be a carpenter when I graduated from high school. So that's how I started, but I went back to college.
I was not on the honor. I was on the dishonor group.
So thank you, J.J. Musk.
That was
Doge
preparing
cabinet.
me. That was on the job training for probation officer.
Look, guys, if you want to determine who to vote for, look, I can tell you in Oklahoma, what I found is that there is a good old boy system, okay? We have good old boys in our politics. And if you want to know who to vote for, simply go up to the most good old boy you can find in our political system that you've identified and ask them who that you should definitely not vote for. Then vote for that one. Right? Here they are. So, just a little history here is, I preached a sermon from this very spot right here, and I said, Oklahoma has already taken ground. We have strong faith candidates running. We have strong faith people in office. Just because they have strong faith, though, doesn't always mean that they're great governors. They're not great politicians. They may be great people. They may be great sons and daughters of God, but it doesn't mean that they know how to lead perfectly well. But what I'm not willing to do as a pastor is give up ground when we have moral candidates, or at least candidates that have a moral foundation of saying, if it's against God, I have a code of conduct. And so one of the things I said in here is we're not giving back ground we've already claimed. And so I was so pleased. I didn't reach out to Jake Merrick. Jake Merrick reached out to me. And that is very rare for a political figure that's running for the highest office in our government to do that and to partner with pastors and to partner. He is one of the most approachable candidates that I know. And we have a governor now that's actually pretty approachable. I've talked to him several times. And I appreciate that in our political figures, that they understand there are people that understand they work for us, they should be available to us. And that's important so they can be heard. And so I know a lot of us have different worries and concerns. I recently just was part of a press conference in Washington, D.C. With those 200 pastors where we were discussing compassionate immigration. And talking about the immigration issue. Oklahoma, we are right now on the south side of Oklahoma City, okay? And for some of you that are watching online that may not know the entire area of Oklahoma City, this is the south side, okay? There are a lot of people that don't want to come to church. They're like, your church is over where? The south side. And so we have a different demographic here on this side. We have a lower income base. We have a lot of homeless here. And we have a large Spanish community here. In fact, if you walk outside my church into the parking lot, you're looking at U.S. Grant High School. If you saw any of the news coverage of the different protests where the students were walking out of school, I literally stood in my parking lot, took pictures, and videoed our students across the street protesting ICE and immigration. And they have been fed a narrative by the media. I love that Trump has talked about actually renaming them to the national immigration, right? So that when they talk about them, they have to say nice. Yeah, so that would be fantastic. But I have an immigrant wife, and she was brought over here when she was 8 years old, and she had no choice in this. She loves America. She's only really known America. She only has these very vague memories of Mexico, and we have systems in place. Let me just kind of get this out, suss this out. We talk about this once again. Please stop buying into the sound bites. We are supposed to be the church, and we are supposed to be the holders of truth. Do you know why every communist and Marxist governmental system that takes over, the first thing they do is go after first guns, then religion? Does that sound familiar? Guns and religion? Okay. Marxists that go after, do you know why they go after? They don't go after Buddhists, by the way. That's not what they go after. They don't go after any other faith group. The number one targeted faith group is Christians. Do you know why? It's because out of every studied socioeconomic class of people, Christians on every psychological test have been proven the least likely to be brainwashed. We're already washed by the blood. Right? Jesus already washed our brains. So there's nothing, we've already renewed our minds. It can't be washed. And so because of that, every single Marxist or communist society has come in, has gone after Christians and tried to make them the villains because they cannot control them and they will not buy into propaganda larger than any other segment of society. That's true, and you can fact check that is true. Christians will not give into propaganda like others. So we have to, because of that, it's so important that we are protectors of the truth to the next degree. That we vet everything, that we don't share things on social media because they sound good. So we can't buy into this soundbite mentality, right? And so we have this whole group that believes that somehow our president has been targeting people at an unprecedented rate, more so kicking more people out of the country than ever before. The fact is that we watch the media attack conservative presidents for cages that Obama built. Obama built the cages and got off for it, and then other presidents got in trouble because they were being used. He built them and used them, and he literally kicked more people out of the country than our current administration has. That's a fact. And so it's so important that we are arbiters of truth. And here's the thing, though, is that what we say is we make these accusations. We say, undocumented workers, right? Right. We're trying to change the narrative. Illegal immigrants, undocumented workers. And we're trying to rally around these two sound bites that aren't holders of truth. So here's some truth. Yes, there are illegal immigrants, people that came over here illegally. Let's call it that. There are also undocumented workers, people who are working and earning an honest living under the table, right? So they're hardworking. They're not doing it completely legal, so you can call that dishonest if you want to. But they're working hard, right? They're not drug dealers. They're not criminals. They're working sound jobs. You want to find out, I found out just recently how many we had in Oklahoma. Personally, I was flipping a house, and I hired a contractor, and suddenly we were on a 6-week delay. And I found out, oh, that's who was working for you. Okay, because he lost a lot of his crew. Right, so I found out, oh, we do have an issue with that. That is a real thing here. So they were what you would call undocumented workers, right? Working, doing something noble, not criminals, but working hard, and they were undocumented. But then we have this whole other class of people. We have DACAs, okay? And some of you may have never heard that. What those are is those are people, mostly kids of immigrants, but there are a whole class of people who are not citizens, who maybe were brought here without their permission as kids, but they have Social Security numbers, they pay taxes, they file tax returns, they pay into governmental systems that they don't get Medicare and Medicaid, and they don't get food stamps, but they pay in money into the government all the time. So they are hardworking people who are paying in their taxes. They file it just like you and I do. They file it a 1040 every year. They pay into the system, and they are hardworking. They have to apply every 2 years for those paperwork, and the government grants them that, and we have lumped all these people together. Okay, we've made this narrative where they're all together. And so they're undocumented, but then there are documented people who don't have legal residency. And so as a pastor, I met with 200 pastors in Washington, D.C. I met with national leaders, Lorenzo Swell and other ones, and we talked about it. And surprisingly, I was in a room full of charismatic pastors. And I would have thought the majority of them would have been the kick them all out mentality. And what I found was that wasn't true. The majority of pastors and the majority of people I talk to, not everyone, believe in compassionate immigration reform. Something that has a pathway that allows the good people that have not been hiding in the shadows, that haven't been crawling around and working illegally, that are contributing to our tax base, to have a compassionate conversation about how do we let those people move forward? What does that system look like? So we have a large immigration population in the state of Oklahoma, and it's growing more. All you have to do is drive up and down this street, and you will see that you need to be bilingual to know what place you're shopping at around here. Like most of the signs are in Spanish. And so what do we do looking through that lens? What is your guys' plan to address that unique set of circumstances? Looking at it through the lens of both justice, right, following the law, and mercy. What is the heart of the law? I think we need politicians that don't just... Can I say this? I am sick and tired of the only people we elect are lawyers who write things that we can't read or understand. Here's my problem with lawyers. I'm going to get on my soapbox and then let you guys talk, okay? But this is a soapbox for me. This is a soapbox for me. I am sick and tired of us electing only lawyers. Here's my reason why. Is lawyers are trained from the minute they go to school. You pick a side and you argue it until you die on that hill. And so then we send them to Washington and they pick blue or red. We send them to state government, they pick blue or red, and they argue until they die on that hill. They are
Maybe
trained
my husband
to
should
win.
call me a lawyer and not stubborn.
Ah! You are the boss. I did not say bossy. I just want to point that out, okay? I refrained. But you have people who literally their entire career was, it doesn't matter who's right or wrong as long as I win the argument. And that's dangerous. We need to have people that say justice matters and following the law matters, but mercy also counts. And so what do we do to look at both of those lenses while upholding the law, while protecting our jobs and our citizens, and also saying, hey, America was founded on immigration. So how do we look at both of those? In light of, I think the last statistic I looked at, I could be wrong, but that we have a job deficit nationally of 700,000 jobs. So we have a workforce deficit. We need good people to fill roles. So what does that look like? I'll turn it over to you guys. Whoever wants to start on that. Anybody got something you want to jump in on? Yeah, we can. Go ahead. Yeah, go
That's
ahead,
all
Heather.
you, Jake. You can start there.
Yeah, she can stay out of it. She's in Moore. They don't have any of those.
We do have a fairly large population of Hispanic folks. I mean, we were renting. I guess I am starting.
Go ahead.
We were renting, for a long time, our church building to a wonderful Guatemalan congregation. And so, yeah, we do. We have a big population there in Moore of Hispanic folks. And so it is, it is something that concerns them, and they have family members. They've come through, some of them have come through legally and have gone through the process and become citizens, but they do have some family members that are not, and so it is a concern to them when we look at this. So, yes. Here, I'll give you this microphone. How about that?
Whoever wants to go next.
So immigration is primarily a federal issue. And obviously I'm a strong 10th Amendment advocate, the state's rights advocate. And so I want to look at the ways that a state can lead and not just defer to or wait on the federal government.
Yes.
So we have, the supremacy clause, and so there are certain things that are the enumerated powers that are granted to the federal government, everything that's not granted to the federal government are reserved to the states and the people. And so the state should be supreme, but there are those enumerated powers that the Founding Fathers did give to the federal government and said, this is what we believe the federal government, the United States as a nation, should take care of. And one of those is immigration. And so true immigration reform will happen at the federal level. And I think that's what we have to continue to advocate for is federal immigration reform, which has been talked about for years, but nothing, I don't think, substantially has been done. So there is that conversation.
Let me nuance this a bit
Sure.
to help you here. Let me nuance this a bit. If I'm voting for you as my governor, I expect you to be my representation to the federal government. I expect I have senators, I have congressmen, and you. You are the leader of our state, the president of our state. I'm making sure that you are the president of my state talking to the president of the United States. And so you, as one of 50, have a voice and an influence. I have watched numerous news moments where our governor is seated next to, directly to Donald Trump, the president of the United States. And so you have the ear of the president. You have a voice there. You may not have power to enact legislation and change that. You're right? We know the enumerated to the states, but you as a voice to him, what does that look like to advocate for the people of Oklahoma and our value system? What is it you're saying to him? What is it you're putting pressure on the federal government for in those areas that you don't have the power to do that, but you have the ear and the mouth to do that?
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely one aspect of this role of governor is that influence at the federal level.
Yes.
The ones that carry the weight, the burden of that, the bulk of that responsibility are the federal representatives that we send and the federal senators that we send to sit in the Congress and to advocate for us up there. I would definitely want to be a voice. And I would happily do that. I understand, though, too, the primary role of governor is the chief executor of our laws here. And so how then considering our laws in the state, how do I execute those as the chief executive of those laws, while at the same time, advocating for better laws at the federal level. And working with our federal counterparts, the 5 representatives and the 2 senators that we sent up there on our behalf. Considering that this federal law, the federal immigration laws, come down to Oklahoma, and then we have to weigh, okay, do these laws violate constitutional rights of the people of Oklahoma? That's my first consideration, is our rights being violated, because where a constitutional right is violated, it's null and void. And so we have to have representatives, governors, elected officials that understand that and are willing to say, okay, this is a violation of their basic right, and I'm going to step in and protect the people.
Yeah, here's a good example of something that the governor of Texas recently basically said, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but basically said, like, we don't want you here anymore, get out. And a lot of those DACA people that apply every year for their driver's license and their work permits and all that suddenly are worried that they're not going to be allowed to continue to work. They hold positions. Companies need them. Companies have hired them legally. They're legally paying them. And now there are a lot of companies in Texas that suddenly might have a massive shortage of employees. Yeah. Companies that are no longer going to function in industries that are very minority-driven industries. And so they're concerned. I've heard from people when I'm down in Texas, that particular thing. They're very concerned that suddenly the governor of Texas is not going to renew their driver's licenses and not renew their permits. So there is stuff that the governor has his hand in implementing federal law. And so what does that position look like for you, through your lens as governor? What does that look like for you? Are you going to, which direction are you going to go in that?
Yeah. So the big concern, I think, nationwide is how are we as a nation and as a state becoming a magnet for illegals to cross illegally. And so conversations around the implementation of E-Verify, which I've not been a proponent of E-Verify would require that small businesses or businesses of any kind would check the immigration status and confirm that they're here legally before they hire. And if so, they're required to do that. I don't like the red tape and the heavy-handedness of that, and I don't like the federal database of that. So I push against the E-Verify mandate. I think it's good as a tool, but I don't like it as a mandate. But that's one example. The argument behind that is we need that to deal with the magnet, the attraction of illegals coming across the border. Yeah. So what are those things in the state that are attracting illegals? And I think it makes sense to remove that, or to do as much as we can to. As an example here is in public schools, and it kind of connects with the DACA issue, is there's a big concern with taxpayers paying for the children of the illegal immigrants in our public schools. And I share.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a fair argument to go, I'm spending money on this versus what about the good people who are trying to work hard? Like, it's so nuanced. I understand that. It is so nuanced. So there's so many facets to it, but we're looking at the heart of the matter.
Yeah.
Continue.
So, and speaking of heart, because this is a point that I love this conversation, which we need to have more of this conversation, because as a Christian, as a pastor, my heart, I tend to lead with my heart. But I've said this before, is I've said this before, it's been a while since I said it. It's not the responsibility of the law to love you. It's the responsibility of the law and of government to ensure free men stay free, to protect freedom. And there is that nuance that I think we are supposed to see in a jury of our peers with the judicial system, of consideration of where there is a death of an individual. You weigh all the circumstances. Okay, was there motive? Was there premeditation? Were there other factors influencing this person? And all these come into consideration. And so there is the element of mercy that's applied in the courtroom. But when it comes to law, we want law to be as black and white as possible. So it's clear. It can be applied to any courtroom. Now, this is what the law clearly says. Is the speed limit 65 or is it 65? So when you write me a ticket, it's like we need a base, we need a standard. Now, if the speed limit is 65, I usually drive 70. I'm leaning on that mercy, that maybe they're not going to stop me if I'm going 5 over, right? But if he stops me, he could justify giving me a ticket for 5 over. Because the law is 65.
Depending on your illegal attitude.
Yeah, exactly.
So what does that look like? So let's say, what does that look like in practicality? Does that look like you have somebody over here that maybe they're DACA, right? We have compassion, says, look, you weren't brought over. You didn't make the decision to come over here. You don't need any malice. Yeah. And so we look at them and say, hey, you're actually contributing. You're paying taxes. You're hardworking. But maybe you don't qualify for any government programs. Right, you're not a citizen here. You did not come over. You don't qualify. Does it look like rejecting them, saying, "Hey, you cannot. You can stay, but you can't be a burden on our taxpayers," or no, you have to go? Like, how do we walk that out? Or are those good things to talk about? Yeah. I think those are good conversations.
They are. They're very good. And he's chomping.
Yeah, you want to jump in? Jump in.
Go for it.
You got a mic.
Here's the deal. What y'all are talking about, we don't have sanctuary cities. What we have is sanctuary services.
Okay.
So what you're talking about is what he was saying a while ago. When we're looking at a school, ask the education department a simple question. Now, this comes down to this simple. If me and him share a fence, and our fence gets tore down, and his cattle get over on me, and I can't get him to take his cattle back, he won't come get his cattle back, I either got to decide to send his cattle back, get them up, fix the fence, and stop that, okay? Or if I'm going to say, no, I'll take care of your cattle, guess what? I need to know how many cattle we're talking about, because my pasture can only run so many cattle. So I've got to know what the feed bill is. I got to know what the grass is. I got to have a number. These schools will not tell us a number.
And that's a problem.
That's a problem because we don't know. What are we talking about? Are we talking about 89,000? Or are we talking about Now, the other part on
Because
education.
while this is federal, the state is paying for it.
Oh, we
So
we
we
don't
have
even
to be
need
involved in the
we
conversation.
need to just, hey, let the feds do what they do on this. We need to know as a state, what are we spending? And the education department could tell us, they refuse to tell us. Okay, so they should be telling us. The other part of that is that if you have a child that cannot speak English, guess what? It takes twice as much to get that kid taught, so they're taken away from other kids. Right. It takes money to hire a bilingual teacher. So it's not just one factor of just cost, it's what's it doing to the education in that classroom, and can we do that? The other part is we always think Hispanic, but because of our marijuana law, man, we have been inundated, and I just want to say that we were doing a good job growing weed down there in southeastern Oklahoma. We didn't have to import a bunch of Chinese to come in and grow weed for us. So, okay, we were doing a fine job, okay? But the problem is, it's not just Hispanics. It is the Russians, the Chinese, all of these groups that have come in that are cartel that have just inundated rural America. And what you're seeing is human trafficking in not in the way, yes, in prostitution, yes, in child trafficking, but more in services, what we're talking about, workers that are living in, they're slaves.
Yeah.
They're slaves, and they could care less about their lives. If they get killed, if they go to jail, they don't care. They're expendable. So these are people that we're not doing right by them by not addressing this. So we have to address that issue.
Let's dig in nuanced on that very quickly. And it folds into education as well. It folds into immigration, education, all of it. We're kind of creating a full circle. But just for some of you guys real quick, if you need a translation, because I know he was giving you rural America, we're on the south side. So if a neighbor's fence fell down and their pit bulls got in your yard, there it is. Okay, now they understand. They didn't understand.
Exactly. I'm down with that analogy.
Came in their yard.
Absolutely, you know.
And impregnated your pit bull, then
When
whose
when
pit
in
bulls are they?
Hey,
That's
when in Rome, you know, and when in the South Side, you gotta get it. But
Now
the
everyone's
other
with it.
part of that service though is we don't talk about, you know, the hospitalization. You want to see big money. You want to see jails. You want to see
Immigration, right?
prisons. You want
Yeah.
to see. So when we're talking about services, we always bring up schools, but we don't bring up just this. 3 weeks ago, right at the end of session, we had a vote whether to take illegals off the welfare system. That ought to be an easy vote for the Republican Party. And guess what? 34 to 14 voted not to bring it to a vote. They're playing gobbledygook. Well, we didn't vote on that. No, you voted not to vote on it. It's the same difference. Can I get a witness? It's the same thing.
And I
So
don't believe we should be giving that welfare to illegals. So let's go back to the education for a second on that, because here's where it becomes like beyond talking points. So let's say the decision is then we go, you know what, we shouldn't be educating, we shouldn't be paying taxpayer money to educate the illegals that are here. Well, then the question is, are we sending them home? If we keep them here, this is just fact. It has nothing to do with compassion, right? Because the law needs to be blind. Here's where we create a problem. If we say we will not educate them, yet they remain, those uneducated illegals statistically are going to turn to crime. And so we're actually creating crime
But
by
that's
doing
why
that.
we got a green card system.
Right. So what do we do to prevent that without just the whole, we shut it all down, right? Because we do the, I'm mad and I'm going to shut it all down. Then we create a crime problem, right? We already, I'm a pastor. I don't like seeing that there are more marijuana shops than churches in Oklahoma now. I think we have a serious problem when it comes to that. I think we're creating crime. So the question is, how do we mitigate some of that? Because we don't talk nuance about this stuff. Okay, hold on. We don't want to just say no to educating them. Then we have a crime problem. We need to solve all this correctly so we don't create a worse situation and kick that down the can to the next administration 8 years from now that's dealing with a crime inflation, right?
Well, I would keep them in two categories. I would say that you're either here legally or you're not. And so, I mean, because it simplifies things. So whether you have documentation, if you're documented, you should be legal, right? You have the right documentation.
Well, I'm saying those that are actually have done everything legally they can. The government has not given them citizenship yet, but they've started that process. But they're paying taxes. They're paying all the same taxes
Right.
we are.
Well,
School taxes, everything.
I don't lean on that argument too much with the taxation because
There's
if you use
500,000 of those, by
right.
the way.
So if a guy robs a bank and he gets away with it, and he's discovered 5 years later, 10 years later, but he's like, hey, but no, I paid taxes on all that. And like, well, but you stole it. You know, you broke the law. So I don't. Just because they paid taxes, if the question is, are you here legally? Now, if they're in the process, if there should be provision,
Yeah,
right?
DACAs are process.
Right, if they
in process, they've been trying
there should be
to
a
do
legal
processes.
allowance that if you're in process, we're waiting on the government. You know, we're here legally, but we're waiting on the government to process our paperwork. That's a different story. So there is a process in place. It needs to be reformed. It can be reformed at the federal level, I think, to do better. But they have to work with the legal process. And if they're waiting on the government, then they should not be deported. In the same way, there's a lot of businesses that are actually waiting on the fire marshal to come give them approval. But because of the massive delays, they're actually having to shut down their business. And so we're finding this dysfunction in our government in other areas, the slow to respond. So we need, if the government's going to require this, they need to jump on it and provide
that.
those services.
I love that. Yeah,
But
we need to get out of.
the other part, if you deal with, and I deal with this because I live in rural Oklahoma, and we have many ranches that require, I've got one right now, just wrote a letter this week to Argentina and to say, used to in the green card process, when you gave that guy a green card, his family also got. That means his family could come with him. And now it's just almost impossible to get the family. So this guy's going to come work for a little while, then you let him go back. You may not can get him back. So the whole process of trying to get somebody here on a legal, we got to fix that to where it works, because that's, you can't get people here legally. You're having to fight it. It's a very hard process. So fix the process to where now they can come legal, and there may be a process that we could set up. Again, it becomes harder as a state because the feds do, drive that. So if we come up as a state that, hey, we're going to let you legally report this. If you have employment, you don't have a criminal record. If you're not, affiliated with a known gang, I got a lot of heat for saying that they're terrorists. And before Trump did that, I actually filed a deal and made world news on that. So I still stand by that. If they're a terrorist with a known gang group, then we should deport them quickly, very quickly. We don't need fentanyl and gangs and sex traffic and rape trees and all that. But we should have a process where if that person, even illegally, came, if they have a job, that we could identify them, get taxes, make them assimilate. But I say they have to go behind the other people who did it legally. They can't jump in the front of the line. They got to go to the back of the line. They can't buck the line. And then they're going to have to pay a fine. I say make them pay a fine for coming here illegally, like you would charge anybody else a fine.
Yeah.
If I catch Jake speeding, I'm giving him a fine. Okay.
By the way, but the people I've talked to like that, all of them said we would absolutely pay the fine.
Yeah,
the
there's
tax
stuff we
revenue
could
that
talk
comes
to.
into that is crazy. Yeah.
But as a state, I don't think we can do that because the federal controls that portion. Correct me if I'm wrong. But as a
There
state,
is
we should
some stuff,
identify what we're spending. Tax
Yeah, there
dollars.
are some stuff you can do. So let me see if I can summarize this. We'll move on. Summarize what I think I heard you say is that as governor, you're those people that have started a legal process of some kind, right? They filed something, they're trying, they're doing all that. You have no intention as governor jumping in that process and muddying the waters and trying to do anything to stop that process. Let the federal government play that process out and allow that, at least on that level, right? Did I understand that right?
I mean, we need to be clear what the law is.
Right.
Hold people to the law. And if they're just opting not and hoping they don't get caught, Well,
Yeah.
if you get caught, you're going to be deported.
Right, but if
And
they're
rightfully
filing
so.
papers, if they're in a process, they're doing their stuff. That as governor, you're saying, hey, let that process.
That's within
play
the
out.
bounds of the law. Yeah,
Right, there
so it
are
should be
some
protected.
states that
Yeah.
are either going and saying we're not going to do anything and we're going to resist the process. We're going to resist what the federal government is saying, and then there's other states saying no, we're just going to kick them out regardless of the federal. So I would love to see just that neutral position myself. That's where I'm at. Is allow the federal government process to play its role. I think that's a great just a nuanced
We shouldn't
question.
give them, our governor at one point advocated giving them free education and help getting jobs over our own citizens. And I oppose that
Absolutely.
1,000%.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there could be a deeper conversation about that, about making them pay for their own education, but allowing it to happen. I mean, there's all kinds of things that we talked about. The issue is whether or not there is a will and a desire to actually solve problems instead of just make political points in front of cameras and then no bills come to the floor. That's the biggest problem.
And I
we
think
have.
that we should be identifying, again, doing proper assessment of what the situation is. But if we have kids that can't speak English, why are we putting them in a classroom where they're not going to learn anything, where they're dragging? What should be our first goal is let's put them in a classroom and teach them English.
Yeah,
You know
absolutely.
what I'm saying? Or let's put them in a classroom and teach, but where they would have a Spanish talking or whatever, foreign group that we have. But you had to teach them to assimilate. You had to get them
Yes.
to. So again,
We are in an area where that is an issue, where the students that come across the street speak English, their parents many times do not. So we understand that roadblock and how much it does hinder our ability to even, as a church, to reach these people for God. Like, we struggle even reaching this community for God because there's a language barrier that's tough. So I agree with that as a pastor, just in every aspect. It applies to everything. All right, so let's shift if we can, and if you want to jump in on any of that. But I want to take a few minutes to see if anybody that is here tonight, if you have any questions you would like to ask, and maybe we can lean that direction, and we can maybe take a mic, have someone run a mic here for you. Is there anyone, you can just raise your hand if you have a question that you'd like to ask any of the candidates. Hopefully you've been sitting here listening, enjoying this, and thinking of all of the great questions you want to ask them. No hands up so far. Maybe in the very back. Can we have, let me grab that mic from you, JJ, and ask that question in the back. And we'll get it back there to you. And I appreciate their time so much, and I appreciate your guys' time so much. I know there is a very important Thunder game happening right now. So,
I think two of you up there know who I am. Want to hear a little bit more about the corruption in Oklahoma DHS.
Yeah, right. Good to see you again.
Yeah, appreciate it.
that's a
Thank-
question. Can you
Thank you.
talk into the Oklahoma corruption of DHS? Either one of you guys want to?
Oh, yeah. Well, we would be here the rest of the night, and we would definitely miss the Thunder game because, but it's been a high priority of mine. Obviously, people know my story, but we adopted out of DHS, our oldest daughter, and so that exposed us to the brokenness of the system. And so we saw the dysfunction firsthand. And then when I got into office and made it known that that was a priority for me, then the stories started flooding in from families around the state. And so obviously, I believe that the system, the agency is doing more harm than good. And since we're in a church, I like to make this point. My first time in the DHS headquarters, I walked out and I said, I hate this place. It's full of brokenness. And I said, it's the state's solution to a spiritual problem. And so that's how I fundamentally understand this, is that the enemy is attacking the family unit, marriages, the definition of gender, parental authority over their children, rebellion of children, all these things. And the state can't fix that. But the state must step in where there is a crime committed or where children are being neglected or abused. So that's the role of the state there, but oftentimes that's not the case. We have caseworkers that are being overworked. Their caseload is way too great to be able to offer good services to the people. So just 2 weeks ago, a lady who's a caseworker in DHS said people are leaving in droves out of this agency because it's so toxic. And then the caseload is being passed on to the other ones who stay. So it just continues to compound the problem. But I would start with the new head of DHS. As governor, I could appoint the new head of DHS, and it would be confirmed to the Senate. But we need a new head, and someone who's going to prioritize parental authority, I would like to move the standard for removal. This was a bill that was attempted in the House and it didn't make it through committee, but increase the standard for removal from preponderance of evidence to clear and convincing proof. That before a child is removed from his or her parents, her family, there needs to be clear and convincing proof that there has been a crime committed or there's been abuse present before a child is.
Isn't that just the Constitution?
You would think it'd be a Constitution.
Isn't that just
Yeah.
the Constitution that you're innocent until proven guilty? The fact they can steal your children, right? We have a Constitution that says no, you have to have a warrant, right? Like you can steal your children. You can't steal their stuff. You can't steal their bank account, but you can steal their children. That's a problem.
So many times we're talking about CPS, Children, Child Protective Service. We forget APS, which is where you're at. And again, they're taking these people out of their home, out of good homes, without due process, and they're doing it for the purpose of stealing their money to put them in a nursing home where all of them are bleeding those people dry, either on Social Security or their homes, selling their homes. So it's a racket. It is a racket that's going on across the United States. I will be on a podcast tomorrow in Dallas where we have a huge case similar to yours, big case that we're working on. I'm working nationwide on this, on human trafficking, on DHS being one of the largest human traffickers that I believe are out there. And so we're combating that. I will tell you that DHS last year had $100 million gone out of their budget, $100 million unaccounted for. We got a house full of accountants. We got a house full of auditors. Ray Charles in the dark can find $100 million. Come on. They say unaccounted for. Hey, what is going on? I mean, what the Humphrey, okay? But here's the thing. Not only that, we have 540 daycares being closed. This is criminal. They're closing daycares. They're giving money to the state so that they can get your kids, go over there and indoctrinate your kids so that we get all this money for the state. Guys, the whole place, you know, my good friend Dana said it needs to be burnt to the ground. That's what we need to do. We need to take CPS, put it under the sheriff's department. Those people should be law enforcement. Every one of these cases are supposed to be referred to law enforcement. That's by an act called Kelsey Briggs. I looked at somewhere around 80,000 calls. About 14 of them ended up getting referred to the sheriff's department. It's incredible what's going on. I mean, we've got to reform this, and that's what we're doing right now in a grand jury at Payne County. I was there collecting signatures today. We're going after them like a biting hog. I believe we're fixing to get them. I think we will get those signatures, and when we do, the party is on.
Once again, biting hog, a biting Rottweiler, just helping the South Side. Well, before we jump to the next question, you know, here's a real life example of something that we're facing as a state and plays into DHS. So I have a great friend, Troy Brewer. Perhaps you've heard of him, but he's a pastor. He's one of the things he does the best. If you've ever seen the movie Sound of Freedom, in the movie Sound of Freedom, they show the character as Tim. But there's a scene where he's going up the Amazon River pretending to be a doctor in order to rescue a trafficked girl. That is actually Troy Brewer's story. Okay, so they borrowed one of his stories. He rescued over 900 girls out of sex trafficking last year alone, and they're up to like, the last I talked to him like a month ago was 130, the last number I got from him, about 130 this year. And they'll probably see about 1,200. Here's the thing. He's in the state of Texas. I can't speak to what state and what government. I will tell you that. But they came to him, they being some government, came to him and said, we have 1,500 girls that we want to bring to you. Here is the problem with our system, our DHS, the trafficking, all of the court system for these girls. They are trafficked across the border and sometimes locally, but specifically when they are brought here against their wills. They're being trafficked over here. We have 1,500 of them. Here is the issue. If we send them through the system, this is what will happen 100% of the time. They will go before the court. The court say, we don't know you. You're not we don't have anything. And what they will do is release them back to their parents. Their parents are their traffickers. And those girls, what happens is the judges are releasing them back to the traffickers, the cartel, and they're sending them back. Those girls disappear forever and are never found again. And so now the government, these government officials have finally decided government's broken. These girls are victims. And if Troy can do something about it, we're going to do something about it. They've asked him, can you take 1,500 girls right now? We will drop them out of the legal system and just hand them to you to deal with. Because if we put them in the legal system, they're gone forever. And these are victims. And as United States of America, when victims are presented to us, we need to do better. Like we need to be that.
I was asked here in Oklahoma by one of the top branches to investigate a group, a government group in Oklahoma that gets some of the largest grant money for putting undocumented kids. And I told them I will investigate that if you'll come out publicly and say you're backing me, you're asking me to investigate it. I will not investigate it if you do not. Not say I won't investigate, I will anyways. But I won't publicly come out and take a stand. I will do it quietly in the background because this is some scary stuff, okay? This is scary stuff. And guess what? Refuse. We have people that know in our top levels of government that there are people in other government positions, massive money, massive kids being trafficked out of Oklahoma, I believe. I'm going to say I believe that.
I believe one of the solutions to that, and Heather, you're free to say that, and then we'll take a question. Okay. So is I think one of the solutions for that is that government and church needs to work hand in hand. These are areas the church cares about and is moved to do, not out of political expediency, not out of fundraising goals, but out of the heart of the church. And when you take someone who has a heart for a matter, they're going to have solutions, more and correct solutions for that matter. And so this is an area where the church, I think, and government should be working stronger together to create programs where the government is funding these programs, allowing the church to walk them out. Any organization that's walking it out and helping in our DHS system. I think our churches need a more active role. This is why churches need to be involved in government, so government can get involved in these areas and turn some of these over to the church and fund them and say, if you're doing it right, then the church will do that. I know we are doing that right now with our homeless issue with HUD. I just met with the faith director and the assistant director of HUD. Of our federal government. I had a meeting with them, and we about 40 of us pastors to discuss how to deal with homelessness in our cities. And they have a faith agenda because they say churches are doing it the best, and we want to stop the fact that churches are being snubbed by these state organizations that don't like churches. And so they're snubbing them even though they do a better job. So HUD nationally is working better, and we need our local government to work better with our national government to do that. And I believe these men's heart is to see that. That's why one of the reasons why my vote goes to somebody I know has a faith background, has a faith foundation, because they're not going to exclude the church. They don't have to favor the church. But we need to make sure we're not electing officials that are specifically targeting against the church. Did you want to add something to that?
No,
okay.
I think we can go to Nicole's question.
Okay, go ahead, Nicole.
It's more of a statement. When you're looking at this campaign for governor and lieutenant governor regarding what's going on with children with our agency of DHS, JJ and Jake are the only candidates, the first that have even talked about it. The others are kind of just repeating what these two have said and what these two have in their heart, but they are the only ones that have taken action before their candidacy and during their candidacy.
There's two cases that she's talking about there. That one you've probably seen on the news recently, the Clayton Woolley case, and he ran away from his foster family. He should have been returned to his family 8 years ago at this point, and now he's run away asking for help, yet they returned him to this documented abusive foster family. Our current AG should have long ago put this child back at home. And so we need to be holding people accountable to this. Absolutely.
One example I like to bring up is the 111 project.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
you know, they work
We're
with.
a part of that.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's beautiful on the foster side of things. And so the connection in the communities with the network of churches so that, you know, if a family receives a child from DHS, say a 2-year-old, they have no diapers formula, clothes, and so the network of churches can flood them with love and resources. And I thought it's a beautiful collaboration with the church and the state.
Yeah, to be very clear, so what happens is 111 will send us a request and say there is a family down the street that needs a crib. And so they provide the funds. We go buy the crib, put the crib together, deliver the crib. Like we go and fulfill that order. The state provides the funds for that crib,
Yeah.
And we get to fulfill it. And they encourage us to connect to that family in any way we deem. So we're allowed to pray for the family. We're allowed to connect to the family, friend the family. All of that. They say we want them to be in community. So they allow the churches to fulfill those requests without spending their own money.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful connection where the state says, we'll fund it, you do the labor, and whatever you want to do is your business as long as we don't get a complaint.
So I would like to look at how we might implement something like that on the front end. And I love what JJ said about let's let the sheriffs handle the bulk of these, the investigations. Caseworkers are not investigators. And so if there's a suspicion of a crime or abuse, send the sheriff, send the deputy out there to investigate it and find out if there's a crime. If it's simply a matter of poverty, if they get out there and say, we find no crime except that there's no food in the cupboard, there's dog feces all over the ground, all over the floor, the kids are running around naked. What if they called the church first and give them a chance to be the first responders and say, there's no real crime except poverty here. So what if the churches then could flood this family with resources and love? You know, bring over, it's like, I know it's midnight, but can you bring over a carpet cleaner and groceries and clothes for these kids? And it's an opportunity then for the church to go minister and love on these families, provide the resources, and not rip a kid out of a home and they may never see their family again. And so things that we could think about that would keep the family intact, but then flood them with the resources of the churches around them. And then, hey, if there's a crime committed, law enforcement must deal with that. It takes it to a new level. But I'm just looking at how we can involve the church and keep families intact as much as possible.
I want to say one on what you said is past performance, present performance is indicative of what you're going to get. So when you're looking, if you want to see about your political people, go back and look what they've done, what they're doing, and that'll tell you what they're gonna do. And so many are talking about, well, DHS is broken. Well, it was broken the whole time you was there, and what did you do to fix it? Not a thing. And in fact, the people who came to you, you kicked them off committee chairman. You whooped them like a rented mule. So the other thing is that nobody is talking about this thing, medical kidnapping that is going on right now. Horrific. I just Monday I'll be putting out a video that I had a young lady, 5 years old, brain tumor. Her parents took her to OU. They removed the brain tumor. They wanted testing to see where the cancer was at so that they could send those tests to Philadelphia to one of the best children's hospitals in the nation to find out should they do chemotherapy. OU calls DHS, tried to take the kid away from them because they're trying to get a second opinion on chemotherapy. I had to get them a lawyer. We ended up going to court. We got a good judge, thank goodness, man, and that's rare, okay? And so anyways, she let them take the test. The young lady is cancer-free on 2 different tests. Awesome, big win, great report on that. But also, the judge agreed to let them send those tests to Philadelphia to determine what's the best avenue for treatment. And they're not opposing chemotherapy. They just want to know, is that what's best? I mean, kudos. These are parents doing the right thing, and yet this attorney had to go to court with them twice one the other day. The attorney called me and was pumped. She said this is the biggest case that she had been on. She was pumped, fired up. The dad called pumped, fired up. Guys, that's an awesome story, but why is OU and DHS trying to take these kids? And it's all about money. OU's wanting to get the money to, and most of these kids are going to be on Sooner Care, Medicare, one of these, and they're double billing. I think I'm getting the goods. I'm always digging up under some, but I've got like 5 cases right now I'm working on those. One of them has the documentation to show what I think we're going to be able to find. And so it's huge. This is a discussion that we need to be having. DHS is criminal, and nobody's talking about filing. When you take a kid without due process, you come take my kid without due process, better leave it unsaid. That's what our amendments are about. It's you take my child. When we can come in a house, we can take children. Woolies, 7 years, never any due process. No, how did they take that kid? And guess what? We've had kid after kid after kid that they've never went in and done due process. That's called kidnapping. And I would file on them.
I recently spoke out about the Woolley case and said that this must be, the Clayton must be returned to the parents. And I got a message, from the powers that be that said, you need to look into the details of this case. You should come on out and I'll show you the findings. And I said, if you have the findings, then prosecute them. But you're letting it linger. You're saying you have something. You're saying you have something and you won't take it. That's criminal in itself. And so in the meantime, Clayton is over here floundering. But if you have evidence of a crime and to withhold it, why? I think you're criminal in doing that.
It's unconstitutional. It's a violation
Absolutely.
of the Constitution. You have the right to a speedy trial. I think we need to get a definition on that. Like,
Absolutely.
as governor, what does that look like for you to make sure that all Oklahomans, their Constitution is protected, they have the right to a speedy trial? How do we ensure that as a state? We can't do anything about Texas. We can't do anything about California, but we can do something about Oklahoma.
Yep.
We can make sure that our citizens are protected, that when situations like that happen, what do we look like? As a governor,
Grand jury.
a grand jury, right? Yeah, a grand jury.
And guess what? Your politicians and your Supreme Court justice, the guy that is the head judge over the entire state we had our first grand jury kicked out because they said we did not get the appropriate number. In the courtroom, we said, Judge, how did you get those appropriate numbers? How did you certify? Because it requires a board to certify it, and the board never met because the board would have to post an agenda to meet. No board agenda. We called, it's on tape. The person that's over the board was not there the 16th. She wrote a letter on the 16th saying that the board received it, the board kicked this many out, and the board certified this many. I contacted board chairman. The board chairman in writing said never met, never reviewed, and never certified. Guys, we can prove 100% they lied, and it's called fraud in the election process. And we turn that over to the Supreme Court. He is named on it. He can't rule on his own case. Guess what? He ruled on his own case. He will not hear it because we didn't put it on cardstock. I made it pretty, brought it back to him. They said, well, I didn't make the lines far enough apart. Okay? We're talking about kids being abused, sexually abused. We're talking about rapes. We're talking about rapes being covered up. And now the Supreme Court judge is ruling on his own case and ruling because we didn't put cardstock, didn't cover it correctly, and didn't space the lines out enough. And again, guys, we've caught them on all kinds of stuff. This is our Supreme Court judge. It is time. We have to really get involved in this. The state of Oklahoma's got to wake up on what's really going on.
So here's my problem with these kinds of things that are going on. Here's my issue as a voting citizen. I'm so tired. I recognize the political system and the machine of what it is. I recognize that the reason why none of this is solved is so somebody at the next election cycle can throw a fit about something they're never going to fix. right? So there's something to say, come on, put me in there. Here's the problem. Who's going to do something about it? So we have these things, right? As governor, you can walk in, you can make one phone call and fix this person's problem. You can probably, as governor, say, hey, either show the evidence or you're done today. Like that's it. And you'll probably resolve that case. But what do we do as a government to make sure these don't happen? What do we do to solve this corruption system like that in these particular cases like this so that we don't have them?
So it's multifaceted, but the root issue is a cultural issue, and the detachment of the people, the populace, the true government. The true government is the people. And when the people stop showing up, then others start governing in their stead, in their place. And that's what we have, is we have to make the people's voice valid again, and the people have to show up and start asserting their authority. Now, you mentioned the grand jury. That's exactly what that is the people stepping up and asserting their authority. And we're going to have a revival, a return to the Lord of conviction, that this is a duty. This is a duty for me to do this. And so that will result in the numbers coming in where we could, I envision a day where it's almost impossible for a corrupt politician to be elected. What if there's such righteousness in the land? Where there's such righteousness in the land that it's impossible for a corrupt politician to be elected because the people rule that well. And that's what I see as a fundamental solution to that problem. In the meantime, a governor can do his best to appoint the right judges, to bring attention using the bully pulpit, doing whatever we can to make sure there's righteous people in place. But in the end, it's going to require the people to rise before we correct the system as a whole.
It's really good. See, and that's one of those things that I love about him, and we have to be more diligent as a church. It's so important that, when this man is governor, he's going to hear from me. And I'm going to say, hey, look, what about this one particular case? But what are you doing to solve the next case? And he's going to say, well, Ren, he's going to be honest with me. Ren, I don't really have any power to be able to do that, or this law has to be passed and it's got to come to my desk to sign. He's going to give me that list. I'll be like, that's fine. You have a bully pulpit, use it. I expect you to be our advocate, and where you can't do it legally, you can open your mouth and be bold and loud. And so it's like we need leadership like that. What we have to stop doing is being people that elect the person that runs the most commercials.
There you go, the money. I want to say two things on this matter. First of all, I filed an HJR to impeach the Supreme Court judge the last week that we were at the Capitol. And guess what? Kyle Hilburn is part of that grand jury, and guess what? We didn't never see, nobody heard anything about that HJR. That should have been news. I mean, when you make a filing, when a representative files to say, let's impeach the Supreme Court judge, you would think that would make the news. Nobody even heard about it. And the other thing that I want to talk about, so many churches, and I've been inundated with this, well, what you were saying earlier, we need to keep the politics out of the pulpit. I would say, guys, go back and read your Bible. You know who Joseph was? Guess what? God moved him out of prison and put him right up there in the palace, okay? He moved him prison to palace and made him second over the biggest nation at that time. We saw him pick Moses. Guess what? Moses was the leader of a whole nation. We saw him pick Joshua. We saw him pick all the judges. Guess what? The judges were over. They were the leadership of the nation. When the people wanted a king, guess what? God said, not a good plan, but who did he use to appoint that king? Guess what? It was a prophet. It was a preacher. And the preacher, when that king failed, the preacher at his own risk of his own life went and anointed another king. Guess what? That's what preachers were doing. That's what if you look at the entire Bible, especially the Old Testament, but if you want to look at the New Testament too, God's the same today, yesterday, and forever. And guess what? He don't change.
So I'm going to take this question real quick, but that is exactly one of the reasons that I repented of when I recognized that I had no authority to complain about a Saul when I was unwilling to be a Samuel. I had no right to complain about the problems with a David if I'm unwilling to be a Nathan. Nathan came to David and told him, repent, you messed up. And guess what? David shifted, and it shifted a nation. And so we have to take the place of the church and be willing to get in our leaders' faces and say, hey, we're holding you accountable to represent our values and morals. And so I am going to be a Nathan. And as a church, we need more Nathans. We don't need to stay out of it. And so I would say to any pastors that are watching, or people, you need to have your pastor listen to this part. If they are staying out of the governmental realm, they're not obeying the Bible. Let me say it one more thing before I take this question. If you are not voting, you're sinning. We have a constitution that requires the participation of the people. We the people, who's the government? You have a responsibility. You're the government. And when you withdraw from that, you're actually in disobedience to God's order, to the established government. It says obey your government. Well, your government says vote. You're the government. And so there's a mandate on you to be involved in that system and represent. And our Constitution and our founding documents say that we are supposed to petition. We are supposed to readdress. We are supposed to overthrow if the government gets corrupt. Those are requirements. And so we need to do a better job of being plugged in. Very quickly, just as quick as possible, because we got two questions. This one was asking about the process here. I'm going to simplify the question here, but about human trafficking for the survivors of those. Will there be a process that continues to be super rigorous, very hard, very difficult, or are you thinking about processes that relax so that more victims and survivors can obtain services? How can we help victims and survivors of human trafficking and those kinds of things governmentally to make sure that they're taken care of and on the road to being healthy and fixed? And, have you put any thought into that at all, any of you, even in your own community, helping in those areas?
Yeah, it's interesting talking about the relationship with the church. We want to help the victims, but the primary role of the government is justice, is to administer justice. And we want to help people get up but not become dependent on services. So whether it's welfare or whatever it may be, we don't want to create that dependency on government. So there may be a program or the facilitation of programs that help them get on their feet and overcome the trauma of being a victim of human trafficking. But, I want to lean heavily on nonprofits and churches that are more equipped, better equipped to serve those people, to surround them with love and services, to help them thrive. I'm on the board of a nonprofit called Earthly Dwellings, and we build tiny homes to help individuals get into housing, zero government subsidies. So we aren't going to depend on government funding for this because we don't want the government strings attached to it. But we're going to build the house. We built 4 right now over in Chickasha, and 8 of them are already booked, already reserved. But these are people that are looking for help to get housing. They're not homeless. They're actually working jobs, and they're trying to do their best to succeed. And so we're coming along them as a nonprofit, not government funded, to help them achieve. And so I want to see more of those kinds of services and collaboration with the government to administer justice, but then hand those over to the people that are better equipped to help them heal.
I appreciate answers like that. I'll tell you why. I appreciate it because most of our politicians will answer what will excite the room the most, and you're willing to say, like, hey, government doesn't fix that well. Government is the wrong body for that, but as a government, we can enable the right people to do that and turn it over. Those are good. That's a conservative answer.
And I have worked through drug court, through probation, with people who have drug addictions that we should be offering an alternative to go to prison. If you want to go to prison, I'll be your guide. You want to stay out, I'll guide you. If you want to go in, I'll help you out. I'd open the door for you. You know what I mean? It's your choice, but we need to give the other alternative. The way that we do is we have nursing homes that have closed. We have schools that have closed. We have veteran centers that have closed that can easily be taken for no money. We can fix for little money. Guess what? We work with private industry to provide jobs so that these people actually work. Because guess what? If you want number one thing, I believe God is the number one thing, but if you want to leave secular, number one thing to change somebody and substance abuse, criminal behavior is to give them employment. So we got to teach employment, teach how to work, train them up. So we find companies that we have a workforce shortage. We claimed that a while ago. Guess what? Now we're providing that. We can do the same thing with people you're talking about, whether it's drugs, whether it's homelessness, whatever the issue is. We have facilities out there that are rotting down. We should use them. We should cooperate with, all these companies that need employees. And guess what? If we do it right, we can offer those companies, especially if we have them in the criminal justice system, we can offer them where they don't have to pay taxes, where they don't have to pay workman's comp and all that. So there's a lot of benefit for those companies to use this. If we give them that incentive, it can all work together. So it's not impossible. You just got to use common sense. You got to work these programs.
That's really good. You have something on that?
I'm so sorry. I've been hogging the mic all night. I wish you guys had some time to talk. No, you all have been doing great, and I just nod because I agree. And so, yeah, Jake, what are we going to do with him? Yes, I do echo all these sentiments. There are programs that can be run to keep people out of prison. They try to keep JJ out of prison all the time, right? They don't let you in. Try to put you in to keep you there, but they won't let you come in and scope the place out because you'll expose the corruption. But there are programs out there. There's a program that we're a part of at our church that is a national program that is going around, and it has a 2% recidivism rate, and part of that is getting them employed, training them because they've been fatherless. You were talking about the fatherlessness, and you were talking about the nuclear family, and all these things they do go together, and figuring out how to work those together in the church. But here's the problem: the laborers are few, and so we have to get the people in the church body to be willing to do the work, because it isn't the government's responsibility. And so that's part of the problem, is getting the people to do the work.
Yeah, so here's my place as a pastor now. When someone comes to me and complains about government or any of that stuff, I say, so what are you doing? So what are you doing? So what are you doing? Because here's the reality. If we can't even get everyone to show up to hear about the problems and solutions, how are we going to get people to show up to do the work of solving it? So it's like we have to start our own bully pulpit. We need to use our own bully pulpit, each of us in our community and our surrounding, and say, well, what do you do? Oh, this is so corrupt. Or taxes these days. What are you doing about it? You're not even showing up to the meetings. Be quiet. I don't want to hear from someone that is not taking the responsibility that you have a vote that matters and holding our politicians accountable. Real quick, let me go to this question, and then we'll give some time to you guys can closing remarks real quick. I want to honor your time and make sure we're diligent to it. So go ahead.
Yeah, so as an intercessor, I've been, especially near and dear to my heart, has been the issues of human trafficking, and especially child trafficking. And so we've been praying really hard and hitting that for the last several years. But and now I've got more ammunition to be a little bit more focused in my prayer from what you guys are saying tonight. But how do we stay on top of what's really happening so that we're sending out laser-guided missiles in the atmosphere as opposed to just carpet bombing?
So she's saying, how can the government better inform us or let us know? Like, I think that's
how can I know stuff?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, really, honestly, a lot of it is that most people are just uninformed, I guess it's the same as a pastor. We try to send out information on meetings, and people say, well, I didn't see about that meeting. We sent it out everywhere, right? And so it's all about, how do we have a transparent government and a communicating government? Like, are there thoughts on that?
If I get elected, I've already talked to a media man. We will do a podcast from the Capitol every week. We will take on the hottest. I love hot topics. I love to take on, I mean, throw me the heater. I like the heaters. I want open discussion. I got in a podcast the other day, 1,300 very, very mega people, and they were going to send me some questions beforehand. And I said, please don't send me the questions. I want you to get my honest, unabated, unplanned. I want you to hear my heart. And that's what I want as a lieutenant governor, to hear from the people, hear what is the issue, and then to be able to get that information or to address that problem, not pretend like I have all the answers. I had a boss who was really wormy. He should have been ivermected, but it is legal. I take ivermectin all the time at horse pace. I do want to tell y'all, they lied to them horses. That ain't green apple. That's like persimmon. It tastes like persimmon. It's terrible. It's terrible.
That is not green apple.
But here's the deal. He was wormy. He needed ivermectin, but he had an old saying that do not bring me a problem if you don't have a solution, because you haven't thought enough about the problem if you don't have the solution. Most of the stuff we're talking about, I have a whole plan on criminal justice. If I got a governor elected, man, he's ready to go, because I have a 3-hour presentation fixing all this no new taxes, how we take it away from the agencies who are bloated upside down, turn it back in what Republicans say, less government, more local government. The problem with homelessness, the problem with mental health is right here on the street. We take the money and return it back to the street, find the solutions that we're talking about. And guess what? If we don't know the solutions, insurance is one of the biggest things I don't know. If Marty Quinn gets elected and I get elected, I can promise you I'm going to be talking to Marty Quinn. How do we fix these insurance issues? So, again, it's finding the experts and finding real boots on the ground, but not a bunch of government officials who claim to be experts, who I was in a room of 34 of them the other day, and they looked like a calf in a gate, couldn't tell you nothing. You know what I mean? We got to get real people who know how to fix the problem, and listen to them and go fix the problem. It's as easy as that.
Thank you for the softball pitch to what I was about to say that I wanted to make a comment on. It's perfect, and then we'll go there. Just a second. And one of the things that I do as a pastor is twice a year I get together with other national leaders. These are big, very successful pastors. We get in what's called roundtables, and we sit and we talk about the problems in church. I just came back from one in Florida with several national pastors, and we talk about the problems inside the church, and we talk about it as experts in our capacity. And we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, and we hash it out. These are experts in their capacities of church. And we talk about how we can church better, how we can message it. And we get on the same page so we can come together in a coalition and be of one mind. I would love to see a government in Oklahoma from the top, not of who's on the cabinet, not of lobbyists around you, but experts in all these fields, where there were just roundtables where you could sit as a governor and you guys could hash it out back and forth, and someone could say, no, that's a terrible idea because you're forgetting about this issue. I mean, one of those private rooms that's not political, but leaders outside the political space that are actually solving the problem, and you had roundtables. I think if our governor did that, where he had roundtables with leaders regularly, once a month, something where you brought in people actually changing the thing and had long discussions about those things, I think we'd come up with better solutions instead of a bunch of politicians. And I'm sure you've already thought of that. That's why he's looking at me like, yeah, I was going to do that, okay? Yeah, Ren. So I know that he's probably thinking that direction because he comes from the same world I do, as well as the political world, that he understands there is a scripture. It's maybe some of you heard of it. There's wisdom in the counsel of many. and many doesn't constitute the same political system. So we have one more question. Very quickly, we're going to go really quickly because I want to give them a chance to just say whatever they want to say before we close down tonight.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for
Let's see if we can turn that on. Please don't turn. There you go.
thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you guys for your unconventional approach to the questions thus far. And JJ, in reference to boots on the ground and homelessness, something that is near and dear to my heart are our vets and the VA and the homelessness of our vets, the suicides of our vets. And I was wondering if you have any unconventional plans or perceptions or ideas.
JJ is not unconventional. I am not sure where you learned that from.
Can I say that before you answer that? Can I say this?
Yeah.
Did everyone here? I'm just curious. Did everyone here decide I'm going to vote for JJ Humphrey just so I can watch this podcast happen? Raise your hand if that was the. You had a lot of things to say, and all you had to do was lead with that.
I'm going to tell you, I was talking about GPS the other day because I've done a lot of work on tracking people, and the guys come from Atlanta to track, and when we got through talking about it, one of them owns a comedy club, so he actually has told me that if this gig don't work out, I get to go down to Atlanta and go, I'm just going to talk about government. What else we can laugh our heinies off just talking about what happens in Oklahoma government. Absolutely, I do have, most definitely, because here's what we don't have. We don't have anything in Oklahoma. You want to talk about why we can't successfully do anything? Because we have no programming where we know who. So let me give you something, and we can roll it back to veterans. But in the criminal justice, which is my wheelhouse, guess what? Let me give you a number. Y'all know about McGirt, correct? Everybody know about McGirt, what it is? So that takes those criminal cases off of our state docket, and it puts it on the tribal docket or the federal docket. Okay, I'm in a room with 34 of the top people in our state, criminal justice people. 3 of them even have a clue what we're talking about. I asked them, so I waited till they all got done. I said, Governor, can I ask a question? I said, been quiet all the time. What percentage of McGirt cases come off our state? Guess what? All of them look at me all glassy-eyed like, what I mean? Couldn't give me an answer. And the governor says, well, JJ, we know you know the answer. I said, well, no, I know the Humphrey answer because y'all don't have any way to come up with y'all. So what I did, I called the Chickasaws. I got a friend over there. How many y'all got? Then I said, there's 4 big tribes like that. And then I added all the rest of them. And I just said, let's just multiply it by 5. What they were, we multiplied by 5. I come up with about 32%. Now, is that a good way to do your state government? Probably not, but it's better than what they got. So I look like a champ, you know what I'm saying? Because they look like morons, So here's the deal. 32. How many did we get on 780? How many did 780? Y'all know what 780 was? Where we passed a state question that said we're going to take all the possession stuff and lower it to misdemeanor. How many did that take off our state docket? Guess what? Nobody knows. Let's say it's 10%. How much marijuana take off? Let's say 10%, because nobody knows. Do you get the problem? Nobody knows. That's the problem. Okay? We have to create. I have the way to create it. I had it already done, and they killed it. They stole it from me, and they messed it up. So I have a way to pay for it with no new taxes, that we all use this. We use AI, so it identifies issues that we didn't even think about asking because we're collecting it. It helps us identify crimes where they're happening. It helps us identify if heroin's going up over here, murder rates going up over here. If we have chop shops going in, it catches all this by putting the whole state together. And we know when we put the courts together and everything else, we got to put the tribes together. That's what my beautiful part. We make them pay for a whole bunch of it. So I love that. But anyways, we put it all together. Now we get all of the factors in. Now here's what's funny. All those numbers, we said 10, which we're being very conservative, and 32. So let's just say 50%. What do y'all think happened to prison population during this same 7-year period? Absolutely. It went up, and in fact, it went up dramatically, about 3,000. So how is it that we're having all of these things that's supposed to lower all this, and how can you have 50% of your entire caseload taken off, and yet you go up in incarceration massively, okay? Now, how to bring that back to veterans, the same problem. How many veterans do we have homeless? Who knows? Guess what? Where are they? Where's the majority of them? Guess what? What's the cause of it? Guess what? If we had a system to where we're putting all of these people into this database that we're actually collecting throughout the entire state, one, we're able to address it because now we know how to look at those numbers and actually begin to work on them. But guess what? When you're blind, when the blind lead the blind, they both end up in the ditch. It's every time. Guess what? We're blind. We're being led by the blind and morons to boot, okay? So that's what my plan is. Kick the morons out, open our eyes, get the real numbers, begin to get solutions. It's not that hard. And when we do, guess what? We even get more grant money because we got the numbers to get the grant money, and we write the things. And then if we're smart, we design it correctly, which we will because we're number one in designing. I got a really good plan. I already got the people who's going to do it cheap too. And we do this, and then we sell it to other states. We make money. We make money. That's how you do it. It's simple, easy stuff.
So
even I can come up with it.
That's so good. That's so good. Okay, very quickly, I'm going to give them a couple of minutes just to talk about whatever they want to close it out for the night. But I want you guys to know that Jake will be at Casino Domino Monday morning at 10 a.m. For Tanya's ministry service that she has there. He'll be
That's
speaking
not a casino,
there.
right?
That's not a casino. That's Cosino. That's Spanish. Okay. Cosino, not casino. Domino. That's on Western Avenue, just down 59th, right to Western and 59th, the corner there. He'll be there speaking 10 a.m. this coming Monday at her service, Come and Worship. That's what it's called. So that'll be great. We also have a silent auction going on in the back there. There's some great items back there. I was looking at them. There's a few of them there I want. I believe there's a hat signed by Trump back there that you guys can bid on. So there's a silent auction to help raise money towards the campaigns here. And so we want to be a part of that. And we will take up an offering there as well. It'll be split between the three, and we'll take up an offering for that. And then I'm going to close tonight out praying for our leaders here and praying for their campaigns here. And we will have Jake back at some point here at FFC on a Sunday morning to actually in a different capacity. So we're excited for that. So if you would, we'll start down here at this end with Heather, and you just have a couple of minutes, share what you want to share about your campaign, whatever it is, no questions here, just it's your couple of minutes to do that, and we'll close out and finish with Jake down here.
Man, I've said all I wanted to say tonight. I don't
All
know
right,
what
JJ,
else I could say.
go ahead. No. Go ahead.
No, so you had asked about, how do you get the information? And 2 years ago when I started the worship services at the Capitol, I was an ill-informed voter, an ill-informed citizen until I started actually speaking to the legislators. And that's how you get the information. You have to show up to meetings. You have to have the citizens roundtables. You have to have these conversations. And one of the things that I have made a promise to when I'm elected to Senate District 24, that I will do town halls. I'm an open book. I'm going to talk to you. So the problem I'm having right now is when I'm knocking doors, people want to talk and they have questions and they want to know. And so I'm having conversations that go in depth, that have to go beyond those 5 seconds, 5 minutes you're supposed to be at the door, right? And they have to go in depth. So I am open and available to that, and that's showing up and being informed and asking questions. But that goes then to electing the folks who are willing to do that, because there are people who are not willing to do that. So that's part of that as well. But I'm just excited and looking forward to what God is doing in Oklahoma and in my district. And I think that there are good things ahead, that the best days are still ahead of Oklahoma. I think you've said that a lot throughout your campaign. One thing Oklahoma's the center of the nation. The heart, it's the center. And I think if we can get the heart to beat properly, I think, like you're saying, the nation will follow, and we can lead in the nation. So I'm just looking forward to what God has ahead of Oklahoma.
Our state agencies are a disaster. We're upside down. We talked about that. The question is, what the Humphrey y'all gonna do about it, okay? So here's the deal. This race is not about all the lieutenant governors. This race is about you. What do you want? What do you want? If you want pretty, I'm not it. I got one. He is really pretty. He ought to be on the cover of Vogue. If you want pretty, it ain't me, okay? If you want to look pretty, come stand by me. I'll make you look pretty, okay? And tall. You'll look tall and pretty, okay? If you want people who are going to do absolutely nothing, you know what? They've been doing it for quite some time. Go look at their record. Guys, don't take my word. Go look me up. Vet me. Guys, if you want a bulldog, guess what? If you want a porch dog, vote them others. You want a show dog, vote them. You want a bulldog, J.J. Humphrey is your man, okay? Vote J.J. Humphrey for lieutenant governor.
I told JJ before this that I'm actually friends, I went to school with and have known since I was 20s, one of the people running against him, Brian Hill, is running for the same position, I should say, Brian Hill, and I invited JJ Humphrey here tonight. Okay, so I want to make that very clear. I'm not saying anything negative, but I'm saying this. As a church, we can't endorse anybody, but as Ren Shuffman, I can endorse whoever I want. Can we? All right, the constitutional authority over there has spoken. I can. But Ren Shuffman does endorse these people here. I've gotten to know their characters, some JJ tonight, but I've gotten to know Jake in a larger capacity. And let me say this before Jake's closing remarks. I'm saying it, not him. But when he's governor, we're going to finally have a meritocracy government. You know you love it.
Yeah. Those are the kind of jokes I make all the time, and my family
Okay, so a good
rejects it.
dad joke. You win whether they laugh or roll their eyes. Those are wins both ways. Meritocracy. That's what we're getting.
Well, and to go back to your question too about how we make it more transparent and available, I'm going to be on his podcast, so we'll ramp that up. Then I'll be a guest, and so we can talk about it. I loved having JJ as one of my guests on the radio show. I had a radio show for 2.5 years, and there was just no lack of content. You just say, okay, here's JJ, and then I just go take a coffee break, and he just goes on. He takes over. So no, but it's meat though. It's meat and it's solutions. So appreciate that, and that's what we want to bring, are actual solutions. And to tie into what you had mentioned before about the round table, I've been talking about citizen advisory boards. And so it's returning the power back to the people and a bottom-up structure. And so what I want to see are those that represent teachers, those that represent manufacturers, those that represent farmers and ranchers, those that represent veterans, that I would sit in front of them as my advisors. And the policy would come from the people. So so I'm not taking any lobbyist or PAC or special interest money in my campaign. So when I come and I sit in that seat, I'm string free, I'm hook free. That meaning nobody's going to be controlling me, so that I'm not going to turn my attention to the special interests and then tell the people, this is what we're going to graciously do for you. No, instead we're going to say, people, what do you need? And then we're going to make policy that's going to help you and your families and your businesses. So, this citizen advisory board, I believe, the answers are with the people. The people are the professionals. You understand your situation and what you need best. So the more we can return back to the bottom-up structure, the more balanced our government will be. And that's my intent in this seat. That's the whole reason I'm in this, is to challenge the political machine. And the machine that's discounted and disconnected the people from the process. So I'm excited about that. We are just gaining momentum every day. I have, our volunteer coordinator back there, Stephanie, and she's been working like crazy the last 2 days trying to fulfill sign orders. So over 500, I think, sign orders have come in the last 2 days from around the state. So it's been just a madhouse, momentum building. We feel very good about this, and we intend to listen to the people. That's what it's all about. So anything you want to add?
I was just going to say, as governor and first lady, we would love on Sunday mornings to be in churches across the state.
Yeah, that's our heart. That's our passion. So we'd love to do that. Thank you for the opportunity up there at some point in the future. So yeah.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, as soon as we work a date out, that's up to you. Absolutely. You done?
I'm done.
Okay, all right.
Thank
Good.
you.
I think that this was a great conversation. I think we need to have more conversations like this. Now the question is, what do you do with it? What do you guys do with it? Do you just go home and you say, okay, well, I attended, so now I know how I'm going to vote? Or are you actually going to use your sphere of influence and say, hey, I need to take action? Especially when we have candidates that don't have the big money, that they require people with big effort. And so it's going to take you with big effort so that we have to stop the narrative that you have to have big money to win. Otherwise, all we're going to get is corrupt politicians. The problem isn't corrupt politicians, it's inactive citizens. So the citizens will be activated and be informed and show up. They wouldn't actually need any money to run. Right? So I hope that you guys will be Nathans. I hope that you will go to your neighbors and be Paul Revere's, right? And message and share and push and get to know each candidate and make informed decisions about who you think will lead the best. I appreciate people like Jake who will come in here and I'll say a compassionate position and Jake will say that's not the government's job. Like we've had conversations like that and I'm looking for him to push back on me. I don't want a yes man that'll say, I'm so tired of politicians that will say, yeah, we'll work right on that. No, you're not. Right? It's just all lip service where he says, look, I'm not going to do a thing about that. That's not government's role. And so we need politicians that will put our government in its right role and tell our citizens to get off their butt and do the parts that they're supposed to do. Otherwise, we end up being a California or New York. I was born and raised in California. I know what it's like to live under Democratic control for 50 years and then move, that was controlled for 50 years and grow up half my life there, move to Oklahoma that's been controlled by Republicans for decades and live half my life there. I can see the difference between the two. And I tell you, you don't want to live in the first one. And so that's what happens when we want government to solve all our problems. Well, the first solution is for the citizens to be involved. If you're not involved, government will end up solving all your problems and you won't like any of their solutions. That's what will happen. So I hope that the biggest thing you take away is not just who you're voting for, but to be informed and to be active. So my takeaway as we finish here, I'm going to pray for them. My takeaway here is that I hope all of you guys in some way walk out of here tonight and say, I'm going to vote for you. If you say you're going to vote for them, what are you going to do to help their campaign to make sure somebody else votes for them? How are you going to multiply? The church's job is to what? Go and make disciples. So if you've made a decision, go make a disciple of your decision. Amen? And so can I pray for you gentlemen real quick and lady? We're going to pray for you guys real quick. And if you guys would just extend your hand out to them. Father, Lord, I thank you for these that would stand up, that would represent our great state. And Lord, while we are politicians are running for office, we always talk about the problems. When they're in office, they talk about how good things are. So Father, we know that everything is not negative, everything is not a problem, but we want to improve where there is improvement to be had. Lord, I thank you for these people who are willing to stand in the gap and step up and say, we're going to improve what we can improve. We're going to lead where we can lead, and we're going to take our great state to make it even greater. Father, Lord, I just pray for your wisdom and your gift of discernment, Father, that our leaders here tonight would have the gift of Solomon discernment on their life. That, Lord, they would be able to discern between good and evil. Solomon asked for something solemn. He said, let me have the ability to discern between good and evil. Let me understand the difference. Lord, not just wisdom and how to lead, but the difference between light and darkness. The difference between good and evil. Not just better or best, but good and evil. To know the path that you'd have. Father, would you speak to them and lead them? Would you surround them with men and women that will speak conviction, that will challenge them? But Father, Lord, we know that above all, these leaders need to be humble so that they can receive. Father, would you help them to walk humbly? And as they walk humbly, Father, would you resist that the enemy would throw arrows, that would sling mud? Lord, that we understand that to walk in political circles is to be attacked every single day. So, Father, we put a shield of protection around them. We say and we cover them as the church, though we ask tough questions. We promise and we make this declaration to them and this promise in front of them that we will cover them in prayer daily, that we will remember them, that we will hold up our shields of faith against the fiery darts of those that would come against them. Whether the enemy is leading through people trying to throw them off a cliff like they did to Jesus, or the enemy is directly attacking them in wilderness moments. Lord, we declare that as a church we'll cover them with prayer, but that we will activate. Lord, I decree and declare, and I make this promise that I will use my pulpit, Lord, to message for the righteousness of our state. And our leaders who are leading righteously will have my messaging from my pulpit, that I won't be silent on matters they need me to message for them, Father. That we will work together to see a godly government once again, to see a moral government once again. God, that you can look down and say, there is a people I can bless. And Father, we beseech you to bless this great state, to bless these leaders, and to help them to lead well, so this state can be a shining example on a hill for our nation, so that the rest of the nation can turn, look to us and say, what is it that Oklahoma has that the other state doesn't? And the blessing of God will be the answer. The wisdom of God will be the answer. And the righteousness of God will be the answer once again. Lord, we thank you. And your hand is on them, and your anointing is on them. And as a pastor, I decree and declare that they are anointed for the mantle of government. And I put my hand on Jake, I put my hand on JJ, and I put my hand on Heather and declare they are anointed for the position of government to lead well by example and authority in the name of Jesus. Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Come on, if you agree with that, just say amen, or maybe give a round of applause for these gentlemen and this wonderful lady coming tonight and answering your questions. We're going to stick around. Don't forget that there's a silent auction. If you want to shake their hand, say hello, get some signs, whatever they have available, or sign up for them and say hello. Thank you guys for coming. Appreciate everyone online. Thank you guys for gathering online. We appreciate you being here. And if you don't have somewhere to go on Sunday morning, I invite you to come here Sunday morning, Freedom Fellowship, 10:30 a.m. Thank you guys. Normally I'd say Jake has to run, but he already ran the whole state. He's probably done with that for a minute. Tomorrow at 2 p.m., Jamie in the red shirt, the Jake Merrick shirt right there in the middle, is leading door knocking for Jake. So if you want to be involved and be a part of door knocking for Jake's campaign, see her right there, Jamie, and you can be a part of the door knocking. Put your commitment tonight and your enthusiasm to work. Amen? All right.